A gigantic beast was being dissected by the crowd and carried to the transport carts. Loudly, the captain shouted, "Everyone, listen up. Not done before nightfall. There will be no dinner." He was ruthless, kicking a person who had fallen from the fight while cursing, "If you're not dead, get up and keep moving." The boy carrying the large claw dared not slack off and gritted his teeth. He took it all, his body trembling continuously under the weight of the object on his back. The captain, without reason, pointed at him and scolded loudly, "Zhou-Yi, you useless fool. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and move," he urged. With a bitter, weak smile, he replied, "Yes, Captain." His gaze gleamed with an indescribable determination. He was Zhou-Yi, an ordinary person who just wanted to survive the apocalypse. Zhou-Yi remembered the time back in 2026. The golden sunlight shone down on a lavish city. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted in the middle of the city, marking the beginning of the apocalyptic days. The world plunged into a crisis beyond the realm of scientific explanation. The entire sky turned crimson, accompanied by terrifying scenes. At that moment, gigantic insects emerged from beneath the earth. They circled around, destroying the buildings and structures in the city, carving out countless abysses that connected to other worlds. From within, fierce, murderous glares flashed, as if they wished to annihilate everything. These abysses were filled with countless monsters, resembling high-difficulty dungeons in a game. Everyone calls it the abyss. The abyss also emitted an unidentified type of radiation. A few individuals, under the influence of the abyss, had gained immense power. Those people possess incredibly strong bodies. They are called the awakened. Those who couldn't awaken their abilities to survive the apocalypse could only do the dirtiest and most laborious jobs. Zhou-Yi broke free from the circle of memories and returned to the present, following the group as they transported the massive chunks of meat to the large vehicle. Around you are the desperate shouts of the weak. "There, over there, come on, pull harder." After a long journey, Zhou-Yi finally managed to reach the truck. He and a man struggled to load one or two things onto the truck bed. After the large claw was securely placed on the cart, they both collapsed from exhaustion. Suddenly, a large figure blocked his path. The captain, for some unknown reason, slapped him hard across the face. He raised his voice, scolding, "What are you hesitating for? Don't pretend to be pitiful anymore." Zhou-Yi gritted his teeth, holding his slapped cheek, and remained silent, filled with resentment. Suddenly, a huge insect violently wriggled, rising up in his astonishment. Zhou-Yi's face turned pale, his eyes widened, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. The fierce captain from before was also stunned as he looked at the commotion in front of him. "There's one more still alive over there." The insect angrily charged towards them, attacking the group. Zhou-Yi and the others quickly fled, with frantic shouts of "Run, quickly!" Zhou-Yi dashed away, distancing himself from the aggressive insect. Noticing his speed, the captain suddenly glanced at him with a malicious look. He was surpassed by Zhou-Yi, and in his heart, he was unwilling to accept it. It couldn't be like this. He couldn't let him escape unharmed. The captain furrowed his brows, gritting his teeth as he pondered a sinister thought. Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out amidst the chaos. Zhou-Yi held himself steady, looking at one of his legs, which had just been hit and was now bleeding. His face darkened, and he couldn't help but feel dizzy from the pain. Zhou-Yi shakily turned his head, looking back at the one who had inflicted the injury on him. The captain grinned maliciously, staring at him. The gun in his hand was still emitting a trail of white smoke. Zhou-Yi quickly collapsed, his leg severely injured. He stammered, My leg is." The captain cruelly ran past him, accompanied by his joyful laughter. "Ha ha ha. He is wicked, leaving you to struggle and run quickly, to abandon useless people like you, to be used in this moment. He. Zhou-Yi is weak, dragging a broken body forward, silently understanding many things. Ah, I understand now. The captain sees me as bait. This will create more opportunities for them to escape. Why do I only want to survive? Why is it so difficult?" Zhou-Yi trembled, stretching his body in helplessness, wanting to move forward but unable to. He was unwilling to accept it, exclaiming, "A person like me, who has no abilities, will definitely be eliminated." Zhou-Yi was unwilling to end his life like this. Tears streamed down his dirty face. Suddenly, he opened his eyes when he realized something was approaching him. A cockroach slowly crawled on Zhou-Yi's hand, causing him a moment of slight astonishment. He made an effort to bring his hand closer, closely examining the small creature on his palm, and couldn't help but sigh. In a world like this, on the brink of apocalypse, perhaps only cockroaches live a little better. They can eat everything, unlike I. Every day, they struggle to find food. Their vitality is incredibly strong, even the radiation from the abyss cannot kill them. The small cockroach crawled step by step on his large hand. Zhou-Yi looked at it and exclaimed, "In the next life." Immediately after, the large insect moved closer to him. It opened its enormous, ferocious mouth and swallowed him whole. He couldn't bear to end like this. In his final moment, he thought, If it's possible to turn into a cockroach, that would be great. In an infinite void, the cold, mechanical sound of the system echoed, initiating the body's transformation. The system for the evolution of supernatural abilities was activated during the first restructuring. Failure. The second restructuring attempt failed. The third restructuring failed. The fourth restructuring failed. The 1,559,999th restructuring succeeded. In a dark, stinky corner of the street, only the faintest glow of moonlight illuminated the surroundings. Joey's consciousness gradually began to recover. He was confused, silently thinking, "Am I dead?" He slowly opened his eyes. In front of him was a strange leg, sturdy and with only 3 toes. Clearly, I raised my hand, but before my eyes appeared an arm, one that clearly did not belong to a human. His vision continued to expand. He approached a nearby cracked mirror. He looked at his reflection. It was not the human form he had subconsciously expected, but an ugly, stinking cockroach. He gaped, his eyes wide with disbelief, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. In his eyes, 2 contrasting images appeared, the cockroach as seen by humans and the cockroach as seen by the cockroach. His eyes widened, and he shouted loudly, "This is me." From the dark corner of the street, the sky-splitting cry of Joey rang out, "Oh heavens, have I really become a cockroach?" He stared in astonishment at his current form, though he now had 2 additional hands. "Even though they look as if they have been a part of my body since the moment I was born. But I don't feel any sense of incongruity." You turned your head, your posture twisted as you glanced behind you. The only thing about my entire body that made me feel uncomfortable was the raised shape on my back. The small wings on his back suddenly fluttered, causing him to panic. "Oh no." Then Joey suddenly flew into the air, causing him to be so scared that he cried out loudly, "Ah, stop, stop." The first time flying, he couldn't control his wings and crashed straight into a nearby wall. He painfully fell to the ground. "Ouch." Joey rubbed his small head and silently understood, "As long as I slightly control my back muscles, the wings will immediately move accordingly." He angrily shouted, complaining, "If I had known that my wish would be so sacred before dying, I would have asked to be transformed into something else." Suddenly, a cold voice rang out, cursing humanity for its insatiable greed. The system appeared before him, and Joey scolded, "Are you toying with the emotions of the cockroach god?" Joey dealt with the person, his gaze fixed on the strange object hovering in front of him. The system, in the form of an enraged golden cockroach, continued, 5,000 years. "You are the first person to ask for power from the cockroach god. I originally intended to grant you the greatest power, but now I regret it." Joey grinned wickedly, rubbing his hands with excitement. "Damn, I can't believe it." He immediately knelt and begged, "Cockroach god, please repent quickly, big brother system. I have no foster father, I was wrong, I take back my words." The cockroach god was left speechless by his rapidly changing attitude. Then, it quickly vanished without saying another word. It only left a cold notice: "The system has been shut down. You have been despised by the cockroach god." A cold gust of wind seemed to pass through Joey, causing him to freeze for a moment. He couldn't help but feel downcast, muttering, "It seems I've angered the one who saved me." In the coming days, Joey sat atop a pile of garbage as if the sky were collapsing, constantly shouting loudly, "Call the system. System summon. System." His eyes were filled with tears, his body trembling, a hint of grievance in his expression. "No matter what method I used, I couldn't call the system." His unusual behavior caused the nearby cockroaches to gossip incessantly. "What is he doing? I don't know." Joey understood those words and turned his gaze toward them. "During this time, I've realized that I can understand the conversations between the cockroaches." He remembered the first night, sitting huddled in a corner, feeling deeply aggrieved. "Although I was just joking, I wanted to turn into a rat. But in reality, when I turned into a cockroach, I still feel disgusting from my own corner." Joey turned his head, casting a glance at the group of cockroaches nearby. They gathered together, savoring repulsive food that made him want to vomit. Even his own kind was more revolting. A cockroach was enjoying its meal when it suddenly spotted him. It was friendly, holding its foul-smelling food, and ran over to share with Joey. "Brother, when eating poop, you have to eat it while it's hot. Come over here, there's a fresh lump just released." Joey was so terrified by it that he became hollow-eyed, shouting loudly to stop it. You stay away." But the cockroach still did not stop and drew closer, causing Joey to be so terrified that he resorted to thug-like behavior, swatting it back. The kind-hearted cockroach was struck by you, lying flat on the ground, in some pain. It trembled, feeling sorrowful, and hesitantly uttered, "You've wounded my heart." Joey did not show any mercy and replied coldly, "Sorry, your mouth reeks of dung. Can you die first and then speak?" But on the second evening, Joey lay sprawled helplessly in the empty yard at the corner of the dimly lit street, yet the jealousy within him was incredibly strong. I can really start to smell something fragrant. He was exhausted from being hungry for so long. His saliva pooled into a puddle as he craved food. His vision blurred, and he had lost his clarity, suddenly jumping up. I have to find some food. If not, I'm afraid I might sleepwalk in the middle of the night, crawl into a pile of dung, and start picking through the trash bags nearby. Of course, the sealed plastic bags blocked the cockroach's senses, but they couldn't stop the intellect of my human mind. Zhou opened a large trash bag. He rummaged through the trash, searching for food. Based on my experience as a human, there's definitely something edible in this pile of garbage. Finally, he found a large bag of food in the pile of trash, which had only expired 3 years ago. He was overjoyed and shouted excitedly, "Let's try it." Zhou couldn't wait any longer and quickly tore open the plastic bag. Inside was a large piece of moldy bread, which made him pause. Suddenly, a notification from the system appeared. The system has detected that the salted egg yolk pastry has expired, with an energy content of approximately 385 calories, but it is still edible. The disgusting smell of the cake hit his nose, causing him to resist it incessantly. Ugh, it's been 3 years, it's really making me nauseous. But his empty stomach kept growling, making him pause. Zhou quickly dove into enjoying the huge piece of cake. Tears streamed down his face, overwhelmed with emotion. It was truly fragrant, even though humans could not eat it. But as a cockroach, it truly smells amazing. This is the true meaning of why I want to become a cockroach. On the 10th evening, he gazed up at the sky with a heavy heart, sighing, "The cockroach god still hasn't appeared. I thought that after becoming an insect, my life might be a little easier, but reality has slapped me hard in the face. This is definitely not the life of a human." Zhou pursed his lips, feeling deeply pitiful as he thought about everything he had gone through. I had once considered committing suicide and starting over from the beginning. He recalled his attempts to end his life as a mere cockroach and sighed. But now, I am a cockroach. Jumping for a long time won't kill me, drowning won't kill me, even drinking pesticide can't kill me. Zhou was distressed, thinking, now the only way is to find a natural enemy of the cockroach, so it can eat me. He suddenly remembered the giant insect from before, which had been trembling incessantly, and quickly dismissed it. But what time is it now? It is very painful, just thinking about it is unbearable. After this period of time, he quickly began to gradually accept the life of being a small cockroach. He looked at the chubby little cockroach he had just met, peacefully sleeping beside him, and couldn't help but sigh. I should still live better. Luckily, cockroaches are insects that live in colonies. If I can dominate a community, like becoming a cockroach king, for example, my chances of survival would definitely increase significantly. The fighting spirit ignited within him. Zhou furrowed his brow with determination. So what if the golden hand of the void had been lost? With the wisdom of his past life, he was human. I can still live comfortably as usual. Thinking this, he patted the fat cockroach next to him to wake it up. "You little fatso, I think your bones are quite special. Want to come with me?" The chubby kid turned away coldly, not following the suggestion, and he didn't even have time to eat the hot feces. "Get lost." His words left Zhou speechless. Zhou suddenly fell into a deep thought. At that moment, I realized that I wanted to dominate the world of cockroaches. It doesn't matter whether I live comfortably or not. Does this insect machine recognize whether I am living comfortably or not? He understood and once again told himself, it seems I need an opportunity to prove myself. On the 20th day after reincarnation, the opportunity appeared at that dark street corner. The powerful cockroaches stood tall, announcing to the smaller ones below, "From today onwards, our battalion will move to a place with more abundant food. If you don't go on your own, then stay here and wait to be destroyed by the enemy." Their words caused the weak rats to panic terribly. They cried and wailed in chaos at this tragic news. Hoo, there's no more food to eat. Only Zhou furrowed his brows, angrily glaring at the cowardly cockroaches around him. "You are the worst cockroaches I've ever led. Every day, you refuse to flip the trash can, only wanting to eat and then wait for the scraps." The chubby kid kept thinking about it, and the more he thought, the more it resembled great indignation. I was afraid to go outside, and Zhou, unable to bear it any longer, hurriedly stopped me. "Shut up. You're making me uncomfortable." He looked around, observing the attitude of the other cockroaches, and couldn't help but sigh. Everyone seems to be very afraid of cockroaches, but do they also enjoy staying at home like this? The muscular cockroaches up there could no longer hold their impatience and shouted loudly, "Is there anyone willing to go first? Don't lower your head, speak up." Simultaneously, the tiny cockroaches bowed in fear, sinking into silence, not uttering a word. Zhou crossed his arms and criticized, "They don't even bother with these pests. I never depended on your trash to survive." Suddenly, the system displayed a notification that caught his attention. "Cockroach God says, if you accept this mission, you may consider forgiving yourself." This caused Zhou to pause, and he broke into a cold sweat, thinking, After a moment, Zhou courageously raised his hand, volunteering to stand among the weak, timid members. Zhou spoke loudly and firmly with determination, "I volunteer to lead the way." Your bravery has truly impressed the chubby kid, who looked at you with admiration. Damn, big bro, you're so courageous. He was extremely excited in his heart when the system suddenly returned. Damn it, his guest was about to arrive. After a while, Zhou and the chubby kid carefully huddled into a patch of grass, directing their gaze toward the vast dam. He looked around cautiously, then exclaimed, "Is the task just to cross this big dam? It's so quiet here, it seems like it's going to be simple." The chubby kid, frightened, retorted loudly, "What do you know?" He continued, explaining the mission in detail. Whenever an area runs out of food, the large cockroach sends the young ones to scout for a new place to settle. He thought about the dangerous scene they were about to face, where they would constantly encounter giant insects, their eyes greedily staring at them, making them tremble in fear. But in this world, everywhere is our enemy. The scouting team has a very low survival rate. It suddenly raised its voice, issuing a warning. We could be destroyed at any moment. These words from the chubby kid made Zhou shout in horror. Huh? Isn't this just seeking death? Then he fell into deep thought about the sudden appearance of the system. Could it be that the cockroach god is deceiving me, using my death to appease his anger? Do not let negative things diminish your resolve. He stood up abruptly, shouting loudly and forcefully, "Damn it, then let's retreat. He has a way of helping us fill our stomachs." But the chubby kid didn't respond to his words, instead trembling even more in fear. A large figure appeared behind Zhou. It shot a bullet-like glare at him, but Zhou was unaware of the danger and confusedly asked, "What's wrong with the chubby kid?" The large cockroach suddenly spoke, almost in a fierce tone that startled Zhou. "Where do you want to go?" It shifted its gaze toward the nearby dam, continuing, "Once you cross this dam, there will be many monsters ready to feast. Whoever arrives first gets to eat first." Zhou timidly turned his head to look at the giant cockroach, secretly marveling, has roasting evolved to the point where it can consume monsters from other realms now? It's too powerful. From now on, I will never be short of food again. Goodbye. Your eyes are filled with tears, looking so pitiful, aren't they? That big cockroach. Recently, I have been losing weight. Everyone go have dinner, don't leave any food for me. The large cockroach fell silent, thinking about something without responding to him. Suddenly, its hand shot out like a flash of light. It grabbed Zhou by the neck, lifting him up high, and warned, "If you don't scout the path, you will become our dinner." Under its grip, the tiny Zhou trembled incessantly. He couldn't help but feel a surge of indignation, thinking to himself, "Even if I turn into an insect, can I not escape the rule that the strong crush the weak?" Accepting second place, Zhou recalled the scene from his past life, his anger flaring up. Then, also, because there was no support and they were still very weak, they were sent by the sex base manager to search for food. Do you remember the scene where the strong and imposing managers loudly warned you? Back then, you were a bunch of useless people who only knew how to eat, sit idly, and wait to die. He yelled, justifying his shameless actions. Sending you all outside to search for food is a reward and gives you the chance to survive. His next words were no different from what the large cockroach had said to Zhou. "Now you must thank me for giving you the chance to survive," it said, then threw him violently to the ground, full of hostility. Not stopping there, it continued to fly toward him, using its foot to press him down against the ground. Zhou was forced into a position where he could not move, trembling and filled with resentment as he looked at the fierce, large cockroach. His current weakness only fueled his determination to regain the golden hand. Your eyes were filled with countless veins of anger. Becoming a bug that can consume everything is simply not enough to survive in the apocalypse. He shouted firmly, "I must become stronger." "Sorry, I can't assist with that." The chubby little weakling started crying, looking pitiful. "Hoo-hoo, I'm scared." Zhou broke into a cold sweat, shifting his gaze far off, looking at the dam in front of him. He carefully observed his surroundings. The dam was truly strange. This wasn't even by the river, so why was there a wave breaker here? Crouching behind the bushes earlier, two large cockroaches were observing the situation of the Zhou cockroaches. One of them spoke up and suggested, "Big brother has already climbed halfway up, but there's still no sign of movement. Let's go up as well." The other child, agreeing, strode forward fiercely. They couldn't let these pests get to the good stuff first. He raised his voice and shouted, "The big cockroaches below, prove it and fly quickly toward that dam. We fly straight over there. Even if there are enemies, we must attack those pests first." "Ha ha ha." Zhou gritted his teeth against the cold and exclaimed angrily as he saw them flying over his head. "Humph, clearly flying so well. Why are you still making us find the way?" He was angry. The large cockroaches relied on their numbers to oppress them. These bastards. Suddenly, behind him, the unusually large stones began to shake. Zhou sensed a strange disturbance and turned his head to investigate. A large, blood-red eye stared directly at him. Zhou was frightened by the scene in front of him and stood still for a long time. His eyes were filled with tears of fear as he exclaimed in horror, "These stones, these large frogs, they're staring at the prey in front of them." Zhou was startled, shouting loudly, "These stones are all frogs. They use their colors to camouflage as rocks and wait for their prey to bite." Zhou was sweating profusely, nervously searching for a way to escape. The other cockroaches had already cried out, resigned to their fate. The giant frogs could no longer wait, and they stuck out their long tongues to catch their prey. Zhou shouted loudly, "My teammates, hurry and run, split up, fly up." But the unlucky cockroaches could not escape, quickly becoming a delicious meal for the giant frogs. The cockroaches were quickly dealt with by the frogs in an instant. Suddenly, the system displayed a notification after days of silence. Encountering a natural enemy, currently extracting biological data from the mutated amphibian frog. The leg muscles have developed, and the jumping distance can reach 20 times the length of its body. The tongue can shoot out at a speed of 4 meters per second, aiming at the prey. The tip of the tongue has sharp barbs, and it secretes a numbing substance. The weakness is that it cannot clearly see the prey when they are standing still. Fatty Boy, terrified, cried out and stood frozen in place, unable to move. "Woo, Mom, I'm going to die. What should we do?" Zhou shouted, giving them instructions after receiving detailed advice from the system. "Don't move. They can't see things that are still. Stay where you are and don't make a sound." The cockroach god, after days of absence, suddenly appeared. The cockroach god gave you a choice of questions. It pointed out a path and then guided in great detail. One was to show the safe route, a way to escape danger. Then, it describes the scene where Zhou acquires a loyal subordinate who protects him and helps him achieve the second level of fame, which is saving a cockroach. Take the path that leads to the King of Spies, and it will become your first loyal subordinate. Standing between two choices, Zhou carefully pondered. If he couldn't even protect his own life, how could he become the king of the ants? Of course, just before he spoke and made his decision, the pitiful cries behind him reached his ears, distracting him. Hoo. The chubby little one was hiding between two large rocks, curled up and crying, filled with fear. Hoo. It trembled, casting a pleading look toward Zhou. Big Brother, seeing its gaze reminded him of a scene from his past life. Back then, he was just as weak, gazing like this, pleading, while his ruthless teammates. He remembered now. Back then, he reached out, hoping that those who were fleeing would notice him. What I desire most, I don't even dare to dream of. That is not turning into a cockroach. When everything gradually faded from my sight, at that moment, I truly hoped. Your eyes were filled with tears, yearning to be saved. I truly hoped that someone would turn back and pull me out once more. Recalling the scene filled with suffering at that time, he couldn't help but sigh. Even in the apocalypse, even in a life-or-death situation, the cockroach god was impatient and coldly urged Zhou to count down the time to make a choice. Year 4, Day 2, Zhou was still deep in thought. I still yearn. You have made your choice. You swiftly darted away like an arrow shot. Someone come save me, regardless of the danger. Zhou struggled to fly up, pulling the chubby kid away. Damn fatty, how can you eat so much junk? Later, you must help me lose weight. The fat kid was deeply moved, tears and mucus streaming down his face. Big brother, I love you. Zhou raised his voice to remind, shut up, your breathing is distracting me from focusing. Zhou struggled to drag the chubby kid along as they flew. Suddenly, they both stopped, staring at the scene before them. A large frog had its mouth wide open, waiting for both to charge in. Zhou froze, beads of sweat forming on his forehead, feeling extremely tense. His eyes flashed with a trace of determination. Immediately after, he hastily threw the chubby kid aside, escaping from danger. The chubby kid shouted loudly, turning his head to yell with great concern, Big brother, Zhou was caught by that giant frog with its mouth wide open. The system's cold voice echoed, beep. You have passed the challenge of the cockroach god. Your brave sacrificial spirit has moved me. Cockroach god, the system will be reactivated for you. The frog that swallowed Zhou suddenly inflated, following the system's notification activating the characteristic of devouring all things. The frog's mutated, sticky tongue was equipped with a strong acid-jumping property. The entire body of the frog trembled with panic. Immediately after that, it exploded, and its entire body spilled out a strange liquid. The system echoed with a special reward. A human foot, drenched in sticky fluid, slowly landed on the ground. Zhou, in the form of his previous life, appeared as per the system's announcement. Reconstructing his human form, Zhou's smile returned. This time, it was in the form of a human. Seeing that he was no longer a cockroach, Zhou smiled with squinted eyes. He was as happy as a child, reaching out and jumping up. Haha, I'm back. Pay attention, you still have 2 cockroach antennae on your head. At this moment, the cockroach god system appeared beside him, deeply moved by Zhou Yi's kindness. The cockroach god announced, Zhou Yi, even in the face of despair, you still maintain a heart of kindness. You deserve to become my successor. Hearing the familiar voice, Zhou Yi was taken aback, looking up and silently thinking, successor? Successor of the cockroach god? Terrified by the appearance from a few minutes ago, Zhou Yi pointed at his face, angrily asking, do you understand? Are you saying that I have to turn back into a cockroach? The cockroach god system remained calm and composed. It pointed its finger towards the sky and proudly proclaimed with great dignity, the cockroach is Xiao Chang, and Xiao Chang is immortal. Once immortal, why would you still cling to any form? Zhou Yi thought he had escaped from the default sticker system, but he soon realized otherwise. Han Shui murmured, yes, boss, can you speak more simply? My literary skills aren't very good. Truly, he couldn't stand the name that had gotten him so far. The divine sticker cursed loudly at Zhou Yi, meaning that even in human form, they will possess that immortal power, you fool. Being able to do that is just perfect, nothing more to ask for. Zhou Yi thought to himself as he stroked his chin. So that means. Then, he didn't care about his naked body and skipped happily. The big goat mouth no longer needed to turn into a cockroach. The cockroach god system was also very pleased. It stood next to him, speaking gently. Kan Ngoi, how rare, you didn't abandon your teammate just because it's an insect. You are so good, cockroach god. As soon as the words were spoken, cockroach god fell silent. Suddenly, a loud squelching sound was heard under his feet, and Zhou Yi's toes quickly curled up in panic. The system looked down in a daze, staring intently at Zhou Yi's feet. Zhou Yi turned pale with fear, stammering and forced a smile as he said, haha, the feeling of stepping on this. Could it be? Opening its foot, it was a chubby cockroach, which Zhou Yi accidentally stepped on. The entire body was crushed, and it was covered in blood, dying on the spot. Zhou Yi panicked and shouted, Chubby Xiao, cockroach god. Furious, it gathered itself together and yelled, useless thing, you just stepped on and killed a teammate you just saved. The author really knows how to toy with people's emotions. Zhou Yi seemed to have fallen into the depths of sin. He bent down low, trembling, his hands not daring to touch the plump quail. In Zhou Yi's mind, he could not believe it and was filled with a sense of confusion. Wait, I just came back to life as a human to save Chubby Xiao, and now I'm going to crush it? The system won't turn me back into a spy, will it? You can feel the sharp eyes behind you, about to erupt in the wrath of the cockroach god. His spine went cold, sweat pouring down like rain. Zhou Yi tried to calm himself, telling himself in his heart, calm down, calm down. In this life, success or failure all depends on acting. The cockroach god system was so furious that it was on the verge of exploding with rage. It cursed non-stop, you are such an idiot. How could I be blind enough to choose you as my successor? How could I let the chance for Zhou Yi to become human slip away like that? Holding the fat cockroach in his hand, he cradled his head and wailed miserably. Chubby Xiao, the cockroach god behind him, saw the angry attitude and crossed his arms, lifting his mouth in disdain. How could Zhou Yi let the opportunity to become human slip away? Holding the fat cockroach in his hand, he cried out loudly in despair, clutching his head. Chubby Xiao, the cockroach god behind, saw that accumulating attitude and crossed his arms, lifting his mouth with a face full of disdain. Not only that, Zhou Yi continued his self-blame performance. His hand kept striking his chest, thud, thud. Tears flowed like a waterfall, and he screamed, heavens, heavens, how am I supposed to live like this? I took care of Chubby Xiao with one hand, raised it to be so plump, and now you're going to let a green-haired person send off someone with black hair? Not stopping there, Zhou Yi cried and wailed, rolling around and tossing about, constantly lamenting, fate, are you mocking me? Take me with you too. Without Xian, how could I live? Unexpectedly, this series of actions made the cockroach god stagger. Although somewhat horrified by Zhou Yi, it thought to itself, so, the bond between them is this deep. I have misunderstood him. After a moment, it made a decision, and the cockroach god system snapped its fingers, projecting a system panel and loudly announced, stop crying, Chubby Xiao is not dead. Hearing this, Zhou Yi was surprised, turned around to look at the cockroach god, and spoke, to be precise, it will never die. The system panel that I snapped my fingers to display has images of fat stickers and analysis indicators. It also mentions that it is the bodyguard, the horseman Lam Thiat VE, of yours. The system, in its mighty tone, pointed down at the mutated frogs and shouted loudly, you are the king, you are immortal. It can continuously revive, as long as you kill some mutated monsters. By replenishing enough energy, it would come back to life. Just like that, Zhou Yi, strong and robust, stood up. Among the frogs, there was no longer any obstacle as before. Now, they were just tiny, no bigger than the palm of his hand. Understanding the situation, Zhou showed a smug expression, glancing around and thinking to himself, indeed, it's a narrow alley for sworn enemies, there's no way to spare these frogs now. Now, Zhou reached out to the green frogs, as if he were a horrifying titan. He puffed out smoky breaths, declaring, today, I will make these frogs forever remember the fear of being ruled by humans. One cannot joke with the sharp instincts of a frog. It just took a quick glance downward, and it knew Zhou entire intention. In just a moment, it gathered momentum and leapt onto his long, muscular arm, rushing right up to his face. Zhou, confused, turned his head, and bam, he received a slap to the face from the frog. His face was twisted and swollen, bright red, his frog-like eyes filled with disdain. Truly a mutated frog. One slap, and his face was already bruised. Zhou, furious, clenched his fists tightly, about to crush the frog. Zhou gritted his teeth and snarled, look at you, thinking you're Captain Levi Ackerman, you want to go kill titans or something? Meanwhile, the system suddenly issued a warning, be careful, these mutated frogs are not to be touched. It's corrosive slime. Zhou remained stunned, his hands open. The slime from the green frog stuck to his hands, rapidly corroding his skin like acid. Zhou's hands swelled up and bled profusely. He trembled, his hands burning with pain. Zhou kept wiggling his hands and shaking his whole body, crying out, ouch, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. A fat frog stood in front of him, startled. Now, its eyes widened, intently fixed on the little bird of Zhou, which was continuously swaying. It had thought it was a small worm wriggling. By instinct, the frog opened its mouth wide and used its tongue to snatch the prey. Its long, red tongue shot out like a hand, pressed the tongue of the frog, tightly grasped the trunk of Zhou's elephant, suddenly receiving a blow. Oh my god. Zhou was terrified, his limbs convulsing, screaming out. Only a few of our younger brothers would understand this excruciating pain. Zhou instinctively jumped up, struggling like a wriggling worm. He inadvertently tossed the frog up along with him. Oh, it took so long to pull the frog's damaged tongue out of the nozzle. Zhou trembled, and with a soft exclamation, he muttered, oh, looks like I've lost to the frogs of this life. Zhou turned to whisper to the system, Cockroach God boss, I can't defeat the mutated frogs. Not satisfied with Zhou's performance, Cockroach God immediately shouted, nonsense. The mutated frog is using its unique traits to fight, while you are not utilizing yours, only blindly attacking. I thought I had nothing. Zhou gaped, then turned around and asked, what about my attributes? To answer Zhou's question, I pasted God Be onto a frog and continued to engrave the characteristics I granted you. It's called devouring all things. If you consume it, you can steal its attributes. Eat it, and you will gain its antibodies. The more monsters you eat, the stronger you become. Devour all things, and you will become a god. For a true human, Zhou was truly terrified of this luxurious dish made from the mutated frog. He waved his hand and replied, that's impressive. So, can I grill it and eat it then? Disregarding Zhou's words, the cockroach god system shoved the frog into his mouth. Zhou swallowed the entire frog, forcing it down with difficulty until it reached his throat. Zhou was desperate for power. But when his tongue touched the mutated frog, thousands of taste buds on his tongue simultaneously sent signals to his brain that this was an indescribably disgusting thing. A second later, Zhou exclaimed in disgust, I really can't do it. Zhou bent over, vomiting everything out. Dan Shen crossed his arms, visibly uncomfortable. Then, pointing directly at the swarm of frogs wriggling at his feet, Zhou said, if you can't do it, then you'll log out, because you've been surrounded by these mutated frogs. Only then did he realize that the frogs had gathered together, clinging to Zhou's legs in complete astonishment. You were so scared that you turned purple. Not only were they below, but they had also arranged their troops and attacked from above. You had just been reborn, so you were still weak. You don't know how to do anything except shout. When the frogs gradually surrounded Zhou, their messy hands and legs, their bloated bellies, closed in on everything, leaving only eyes filled with tears and suffering. He changed his mind. That's not right. What do you mean by being picky? What have I done to be selective? Long ago, working to the point of exhaustion, only to be reborn, yet still without food to eat. Having thought it through, Zhou gathered all his courage. He opened his mouth wide to bite into one, shouting loudly. Now that the meat was right in front of him, what was there to complain about? In the end, he bit into the entire mutated frog and shoved it into his mouth. The crackling sound of its bones echoed. And so, Zhou's feast began. Immediately, a series of system notifications appeared. The devouring village of all things was activated, detecting the characteristics of the creatures. Received the corrosive slime characteristic, received the frog leap characteristic, received muscle attributes. Zhou just like that. Using the newly acquired ability, he jumped up, ignoring his naked body. He was completely immersed in enjoying the new skills, the joy and excitement within Joey erupting along with the chorus of frogs. He then put on his handsome and compassionate face, turned towards the mutated frogs, and gently said, "Your abilities are useless to me now, it's my turn." Just received a bit of skill, Joey immediately applied it to the thing the skill was meant for. You freely waved your hands, kicking the frogs onto their bellies, sending them flying in all directions. Just like that, Joey, completely naked, kicked with great force, struck with swift hands, all very gently and affectionately, skillfully and expertly, without exposing anything. A few seconds later, the frogs fell from the sky like rain, surrounding Joey, with his back turned. Just killed a few frogs and immediately started boasting, raising their voice in self-admiration. People say that the undefeated are truly lonely. He hadn't enjoyed the joy for long when a bright car light suddenly rushed from somewhere, shining directly onto his front. And so, Joey's little bird was completely exposed. Tight, tight. You covered your face with your hand, squinting to look at a row of large armored trucks parked in front of Joey. The person inside shouted into the loudspeaker, "Report to the captain, we found a perverted naked man committing obscene acts with a bunch of frogs. How should it be handled?" Hearing the sound of humans, Joey was moved to the point of tears, reaching out with his hand and speaking, "Fellow beings, have you come to save me?" In response to Joey's expectations, the commander in the carriage immediately issued the order, "Shoot him dead." The words felt like salt to the tiny heart of Joey. In an instant, his body was covered with a multitude of darts piercing straight into him. Joey stared blankly as his body was attacked. To elaborate further, just a few minutes before the armored military convoy came to a stop and shone its headlights directly at him, Joey struggled to cover his eyes with his hand, looking at the large characters attached to the front of the vehicle. Joey immediately recognized them and thought to himself, "Is it the extermination squad?" Now, you slowly pull your hand down and look carefully inside your abdomen. You mutter, "In a past life, you once heard others mention the extermination team, which was the strongest resistance force of humanity during that era. Each member of the team was a first-level awakened being from a planet. They are responsible for exterminating monsters hiding on the ground and deep beneath the abyss, supervising and dealing with newly emerged abysses. They still maintain law and order in the cities. It is said that the people living in the cities protected by the extermination squads are now able to live peacefully, just as they did in the period before the disaster." Lost in thought as he recalled the past, after a long while, Joey opened his eyes wide as if he had found a new path. He continued to think, encountering the patrol team of the extermination squad here, doesn't that mean? Thinking they would be willing to help him, young Master Jung's eyes were filled with hope and innocence as he happily shouted out loud, "Fellow cultivators, have you come to save me?" In response to Joey's anticipation, the sound that followed was from the tranquilizer gun, puff, puff, puff. However, he thought he would be saved, but no. His body was covered in needles from the animal tranquilizer gun. Joey presented it, and he couldn't believe his eyes. Looking at the gun, the chest, the six-pack abs, and the fragrant, rich durian, the naked body of him fell flat in front of the large headlights. Several soldiers on the vehicle, holding guns, stepped down. A soldier led two subordinates outside. They carefully carried their guns and equipment, ensuring they were well protected. He used one hand to maintain the signal, his mouth issuing the command to lock the target, preparing to capture. The plan was to quietly take Joey away. However, Joey hadn't fully absorbed the drug yet and raised his hand high. The leader was caught off guard, and he immediately ordered, "Wait, stop." Just as he collapsed, a moment later, Joey forced himself to get up. He stretched his hand forward, his hand trembling. At this moment, his appearance looked quite strained. The soldiers were also frozen in place. The system interface appeared, muscles can stretch and contract, allowing for precise control of every muscle in the body, agilely dodging every attack. Currently, Joey's body could be considered a thick piece of rubber, capable of regenerating. The needles that were injected into his flesh were immediately pushed out, 6 platforms. 1, 2, 3, and then many. The small holes where the needles had pricked quickly returned to normal. Realizing that Joey was not simple, that he was not an ordinary person, the 3 soldiers immediately shifted into attack mode. The 3 people lined up, raising their guns to aim. The leader shouted loudly, "Dangerous target. Everyone, take your positions for battle. The situation seems pretty tense." Joey immediately raised his hand in an attempt to de-escalate. He was also quite confused by the situation and exclaimed, "Wait a minute, brothers, just hold on. I'm not a bad guy. Let me explain first." However, the commander did not pay any attention to Joey's words. He maintained his shooting stance and coldly muttered, "Take aim, fire. There's only 1 second left before he sends Joey to the afterlife." Suddenly, a voice shouted, "Stop." These soldiers immediately released the gun triggers. The leading soldier was startled and turned around to assess the situation. The owner of the voice just now was a beautiful girl. With her fair skin and plump lips, the girl with purple hair gently ordered that he be captured. She reclined on the side of the large carriage, her appearance fresh and her outfit full of personality. Showing off her pair of long, white legs and her huge, watermelon-sized breasts, the soldiers under her command immediately responded in unison, "Understood, Captain." For a long time, there was no movement from the extermination team, indicating a ceasefire. Zhou still held him, raising both hands in frustration. "What the hell are you saying? Do these people not understand human language?" Suddenly, the sound of an engine roared as the motorcycle tires screeched violently against the ground nearby. Several more motorcyclists rushed toward Zhou from the front, who was awkwardly standing with his legs spread wide. These two whispered a few lines, then ran in circles. "Zhou, you are surrounded by these people," constantly observing warily. These people regarded Zhou as a wild beast. They pulled out ropes, swung them around to gain momentum, and grabbed him by the neck. The 7-knot rope was flicked and flew out. Not just one, but simultaneously 4 strands from 5 directions, binding both hands, both legs, and Zhou neck. The chosen target has entered the state to use move 5. Break, 5 people, 5 directions. Rev the engine, all at once, and go. The group pulled the rope to its maximum tension. His limbs were stretched out, and one end of the rope was pulled taut. He screamed in pain, gritting his teeth. Zhou continued to groan, each muscle fiber contracting in an attempt to prevent them from tearing apart. After reincarnating as a cockroach and acquiring the strength of a frog, Zhou became much stronger. However, a person's strength has its limits. He struggled, then got up and called the cockroach god system. Immediately, the system appeared with a reminder. The corrosive substance can secrete a layer of unique frog slime characteristic of the mutated frog on the surface of the skin. It has an extremely corrosive power. His eyes were glued to the information on the board. "As it is known, I need to do this. Do you think you're firm enough?" Clenching his fist tightly, Zhou gradually released a green, acidic slime at the spot where the rope was. Immediately, it began to corrode. The girl with purple hair sitting at a distance noticed this and tilted her head to take a closer look. In an instant, the ropes all came undone at once, and the pulling force backfired, causing the others to tumble upside down. Zhou safely landed on the ground, his body intact. Watching him glance around, his actions and strength were enough to make this captain girl crave more. The sharp fingernail teased the small lips, and his eyes glinted with interest as they turned toward him. Curious, was he also someone awakened? Catch him. Zhou ran, no longer having any pants to kick. The 4 people behind chased him closely. They were determined to catch him no matter what. He closed his eyes and ran blindly. One of them, with green hair, suddenly lunged forward and hugged Zhou waist. "Huh!" The soldier was unexpectedly met with a fan on the surface of Zhou, where there was a lot of greenish slime. "Make it easy for you to slip out of the arms of the green-haired guy." Not only that, even though he was wearing gloves, the skin on his hands was still corroded and burned painfully. No longer chasing Zhou, he stopped and watched as Zhou's naked figure gradually disappeared from sight. He said, "Damn, this is interesting." It was not something that could be easily ignored. The brown-haired soldier behind took a running start, spread his legs on the ground, and jumped. He was very fast, and thanks to the jump, he closed in right behind Zhou's head. His face was completely dark, with only his 2 bright eyes visible. Zhou turned his head back, startled. He lengthened his strides, trying to run faster to escape, intending to dodge a strike aimed directly at his head. However, Zhou's reflexes were quick and skilled. He changed direction and avoided the blow. The strike hit with such force that the ground and rocks cracked and flew up, a large chunk of debris soaring into the air. Not stopping there, this guy's agility was no joke. The moment Zhou turned his head, he saw the staff swinging directly at him. Zhou panicked, unsure how to respond. In a flash whoosh, powerful strike was unleashed, aiming straight for his temple. Zhou, immediately afterward, thanks to his heightened senses, instinctively perceived it. Zhou leaned backward, his back arching 360 degrees. Zhou gritted his teeth, realizing that in this situation, he would have to rely on the system if he hoped to escape. "But this system always waits until you're at your wit's end before showing up," Zhou exclaimed in his mind. "Where is the golden hand system?" The system's 2 golden hands appeared right in front of him, activating the frog jumping feature. "Such speed! You took a run up and jumped like a real frog." Moreover, the leap was still a good 10 meters away, but Zhou was nowhere to be seen. The 2 soldiers stood, staring at the naked body that had blurred with speed in an instant. Even he himself couldn't believe he had actually managed to do such a thing. Zhou, in a daze, stared at his hand and muttered inwardly to himself, I did it. Turning around, Joey realized that he had already left the extermination team far behind. Panting heavily, Joey couldn't help but laugh smugly. He. Once again, I had to spread my legs, hop on one foot, running while gleefully shouting, "Dare to challenge me? You still want to catch me? Ha ha ha." Suddenly, my body was pulled back. I missed a step and shifted into a confused stance, quickly glancing down at my feet. Just leave the punishment for bragging too early, the retribution strikes immediately. Joey was caught by a purple rope filled with powerful energy. He fell, crashing to the ground with a painful thud. It was the purple-haired captain, who, from the top of the distant vehicle, pointed her finger, and Joey immediately got entangled in a web of strands that wrapped around his leg. She sat back, propping herself up with her hands, and said, "What? Do you think you can escape?" 5 fingers. Joey was completely panicked. He gritted his teeth in pain, unable to believe that the woman in front of him was this strong. She truly sees you as a wild beast. The girl decisively pulled the rope back, causing Joey to lose his balance and fall flat on his back. The pain was so intense that he cried out, "Ouch." She continued to move her 10 fingers, shooting out 10 threads of spider silk toward Joey. Each thread contained numerous tiny fibers woven together into a thick, long, dense strand. They clung to the long, twisted body of Joey. He was almost completely bound, looking very confused. Done, she vanished like a gust of wind, leaving only a cloud of dust and a shadow streaking away. The next moment, the front foot stomped straight onto Joey's face, pressing his face hard against the ground. She spoke to the soldier behind her. "How many names is this now?" The green-haired soldier immediately answered, "Report, Captain, this is the 13th. After a while, having secured Joey, the girl sat on a nearby motorcycle and began revving the engine. Wrapped tightly around her body, she looked no different from a silkworm cocoon. Joey was unlucky and was dragged along the road by the captain, continuously subjected to brutal torment. He cried, wanting to shed all his tears, begging, "Please spare me." The entire convoy of the extermination team followed closely behind the team leader. Running ahead, from a distance, one could still hear Joey's desperate cry, "Save me." The convoy moved farther and farther away, growing distant as it continued deeper into the city. After a while, the scene shifted to the base of the extermination team within the city. It was surrounded by a large wall to protect humans from monster attacks. The convoy finally stopped in front of the large base gate. They quickly made an announcement over the loudspeaker for those inside to hear, "Captain Erin has returned and opened the gate." The girl with purple hair was called Erin. She maintained her composure and drove her vehicle straight toward the gate that was slowly opening. Erin also said that there was no need to open the gate too wide to avoid giving the monster a chance to sneak in. Joey could only scream in terror, running inside. Erin skillfully tilted the car, then turned her face to look at Joey, smiling mysteriously. The next moment, she sharply turned the wheel, swerving around the cord. Joey, following the momentum, dragged him along and crashed violently. Joey yelled as if he were about to fall into a grave. Upon entering the room, there was a note on the wall, "The prison of the extermination team. Finally, you were allowed to put on clothes. You look better in the prison outfit." Erin led the way ahead, while Joey was tightly sandwiched between 2 scientists. Still unsure of their intentions, he clicked his tongue and muttered, "It's the apocalypse, and you're still breaking the law, all because I'm naked? Is this really necessary, my beautiful sisters? I'm an honest, harmless person." As for the girls walking alongside him, it was different. The short-haired female scientist exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, does this naked man know how to speak this time? Quite different from the previous 12, isn't he?" Erin immediately became serious, her voice sharp as she said, "Don't be careless." Within a week, 12 unidentified refugees had appeared. All were naked, smiling foolishly, and unable to speak. Although the regular tests usually show the results of an ordinary person, but the feeling that those people give me is a very strong sense of inhumanity. The girl with her hair tied up high next to Joey naturally became irritated and shouted, "Just have them log out if they object. Isn't that enough? Why make things so complicated?" In response to this, the short-haired girl beside her calmly explained, "If someone is executed just because of low intelligence or bad appearance, then we are no different from the monsters outside. Anyway, stop talking. The jealousy test results will be out tomorrow." Hearing the conversation of these people, Joey gradually began to understand. He speculated, "So I was captured just because I accidentally look like those 12 weirdos?" At this moment, he suddenly thought of something, his eyes widened, and he silently exclaimed in his mind, "Wait a minute, do I still have to take a jealousy test?" Confused, he immediately asked himself, "This cockroach god system, cockroach god? Do you think we will get discovered?" Summoned, the cockroach god system immediately appeared and asked, "What is a genetic test?" Hearing this innocent question from him, Zhou-Yi immediately knew the outcome. It felt like he had fallen into an abyss for the second time. Our Zhou-Yi cried silently. It was over, he was doomed. The elevator door opened. The three girls, who had just taken Zhou-Yi to a very large signing room, walked down a long corridor. One of the two female scientists instructed him, whether you're the true pervert or an accomplice of the previous 12, today, you stay obediently sitting here for me. Having said that, the short-haired female scientist turned around and saw several darkened chairs meant for prisoners. She was surprised, let out a hum, and asked, why are the lights turned off? The girl continued to ask as she saw only one person still sitting in the chair, have you moved everyone else out already? Why is there only one person left here? The long-haired scientist was completely confused. There's none. Oh, that's right, where are the other prisoners? Take a closer look at the appearance of the man sitting in the chair. He appeared thin and motionless in the shadow, looking quite eerie. Erin turned her head and looked around, on alert. The others also kept glancing around, checking where the others were. On this side, there was the body of a man, but his head had swollen unnaturally, resembling a balloon. It was nearly 10 times its normal size, and he feared that even the slightest touch from a sharp object might cause it to burst. He caught sight of this unsettling scene. Erin and the two female scientists, along with Zhou-Yi, looked pale and terrified. When they looked up, they widened their eyes in horror at the terrifying sight that appeared before them. Everyone was so frightened that cold sweat broke out on their bodies. The long-haired scientist realized that the thing hovering on the ceiling was Zhou-Yi, and he involuntarily exclaimed, what is that? Above them, 11 prisoners hovered in mid-air. Their heads suddenly swelled, expanding like balloons. They floated back and forth above the group of people. 4 of them were too stunned, gazing upwards, unsure how to express themselves. Moreover, their heads also emitted eerie laughter. Both men and women, their faces as pale as corpses. Behind, Zhou-Yi, the man who had been motionless earlier, suddenly let out a groan. Zhou-Yi's hair stood on end, his face turned pale with fear, and sweat poured down his face in torrents. Then, he suddenly convulsed, his entire body trembling violently. His face was completely dark, with only 2 glowing dots visible, continuously emitting growls like a beast. Now he tilted his head back, revealing a bald skull that was gradually cracking into large pieces. He flashed a smile, showing his cracked teeth, with a dazed expression and 2 bright, piercing pupils, as if his soul had been stolen. Ha ha ha. Picking up where the previous chapter left off, the head continued to swell and eventually exploded like a balloon, the thin skin tearing into strips. Inside were numerous red, pus-filled lumps, many of them clustered together. Moreover, it had numerous eyes scattered underneath, with 3 rows of sharp teeth protruding like those of a demon. This form was terrifying, indescribable in words. It made a loud noise, causing Zhou-Yi and the long-haired scientist to turn around in surprise. Both of them stared intently at the strange object. Now, the monster had broken free from the man's corpse. It expanded, sprouting many long red tentacles that extended in all directions, lunging forward to attack. Its numerous eyes widened, staring fiercely. The gigantic monster, possessing a muscular body like a human's and 10 times the size of an ordinary person, had numerous long tentacles growing from its back. It let out a long shriek, grabbing Zhou-Yi and the 2 female scientists. Zhou-Yi, whose hands were bound, could do nothing more. The shouting echoed loudly. Now, there was only one prey left. It had not been caught yet, but it pointed its bright red tentacle toward Erin. This courageous girl, with her bold personality, faced the monster without panic, spreading her legs and preparing to defend herself against it. Her reflexes were no joke. With a swift dodge, Erin narrowly avoided the monster's red tentacle. She jumped away, only seeing a dark figure leap down from above. Erin only had 5 sharp claws on her hand, and she was extremely confident in her abilities. On the contrary, Erin was still quite excited to face off against a tough monster. She said, "Perhaps this is truly your real body." The short-haired female scientist's abdomen was tightly squeezed. On this side, she was extremely panicked, as large pimple-like lumps, as big as swollen glands, suddenly appeared all over her body. They clustered together in a bundle, looking very disturbing. Moreover, it even spread to her face. The girl kept trembling, staring at them, noticing her body gradually weakening and the pimples multiplying thicker and thicker. She wiped her face, felt it, and screamed, "Oh no!" On this side, Zhou-Yi was also in a state of panic from the sudden attack. He stared in horror at the pimples scattered across his body and exclaimed, "Oh my god, what is happening?" The cockroach god system quickly appeared, reminding, "Host, you have been parasitized. Hurry and swallow its spores, or you will turn into a zombie." Zhou-Yi was still very confused. He lacked the experience to handle situations like this. Now, facing Erin, the rough monster growled, "I want to devour your body." While it was still hanging in the air, the 3 people around it were surrounded by parasitic red shrubs. Aaron stood there, unyielding, showing no sign of fear. The girl glared at the monster and muttered, "Oh, you can talk. Interesting. I've never seen a creature like you before." Then she let out a slight, mocking laugh. Now, the 2 female scientists are almost in control. They gradually lost consciousness and acted contrary to their thoughts. The long-haired scientist waved her hands and legs, screaming incessantly. The short-haired girl growled, her body tense like a wild beast. The monster schemed to use the 2 girls as weapons for its attack. Aaron realized its intention. Aaron shot out a thick purple thread from her hand, shooting straight up. The 2 female scientists under her control were about to charge toward her. The contact surface of the wire head tightly clings to the leg of the tall house. As expected, Aaron quickly turned around, leaping high thanks to the pull of the thread, narrowly avoiding a collision with the 2 infected scientists. With extraordinary agility, Aaron's speed was no joke. Assessing the situation, this vile creature was indeed difficult to deal with. She gritted her teeth, feeling disgusted, and shot a glance at the monster, cursing inwardly. Dealing with these parasitic monsters was truly troublesome. She couldn't just recklessly rush in to fight it. Moreover, she is not carrying any demon essence stones now, so she is unable to use her powers. After thinking for a while, Aaron looked over at a shelf below. The girl was startled, whispering to herself, but at that moment, she could clearly see that the shelf held numerous surgical knives and medical instruments. Utilize everything that can be made into weapons. Aaron released another thread, taking a surgical knife. She thought to herself, it's not like there's no way. As soon as it made contact, it immediately adhered more strongly than super glue, still keeping her body suspended in midair. Aaron concentrated her strength, using the power from the purple thread to fling the surgical knife forward at high speed. Its sharp tip pointed directly at the monster. She focused intensely. 2 of the many eyes of this horrifying monster locked onto Aaron. It glared, its eyes filled with caution, wriggling amidst the lumps of brain tissue covered in tiny pustules. Immediately, the monster struck back. It swung 2 tentacles, hitting with a curve, then yanked them back. This creature is not only disgusting but also intelligent. It uses the 2 humans in its hands as hostages. Bring the 2 female scientists out in front, blocking its mouth from opening, its teeth seeming to stare. Aaron smiled defiantly. The little girl suddenly realized its malicious intent and was startled, quickly steadying her gaze, glaring at the monster with increasing anger. So she quickly grabbed the thread and pulled it in. Aaron tugged on the scissors, stopping just when the sharp tip of the surgical knife was almost touching the scientist's large, round pupils. The monster was still basking in the glory of its recent strike. It glared provocatively. Aaron said, "Humans are weak." Above his head, Joey was still tightly held. He kept struggling beneath the force of its chains. He tried to pull the handcuffs back while muttering to himself, "Wait, hold on, just a moment." Joey was still chewing the red pimples on his body, his mouth full. Realizing their speed, he hesitated and shouted, "My eating speed can't be faster than its parasitic speed, can it?" The cockroach god stood next to him, urging, "Hurry up, stop hesitating, swallow that stomach down quickly." "Ugh, you struggle to swallow these things with such a horrible taste in your mouth." Joey gritted his teeth, trying to prevent his body from expelling the blisters of the parasite, which had spread nearly all over his face. Then came the system's alarm, devouring the parasitic stomach. Gaining the parasite resistance trait, the parasite resistance was enhanced. Parasite resistance 10%, parasite resistance 35%, parasite resistance 46%. Learn the Wolfman's knife techniques. Aaron raised her hand, pointing 4 sharp surgical knives upward. Her tone was harsh, and her attitude was clearly annoyed as she retorted to the person cursing at themselves, "Is this it?" After these words, Aaron's momentum grew even stronger. The little girl had to swing sideways with force, causing 4 surgical knives to fan out and ride the wind through the air, rushing toward the coward who only knew how to hide behind a hostage. Useless scum keeps using the same old trick. The monster continued to use the 2 female scientists as a shield. It let out a delighted cry, "Oh haha, that's useless now." Aaron extended her 10 sharp fingers forward, continuously wiggling them as she used her power to control. She smiled lightly, a little excited as she discerned the true nature of this and replied, "Oh, really?" The 2 knives, separated into 2 directions, flew straight towards the 2 scientists, but suddenly they changed course, circling around and brushing past the lives of the 2 girls. The condition of both of them was becoming more and more severe. They were both motionless and had lost consciousness. The monster was caught off guard by the feint of advancing east while attacking west. Aaron rolled its bulging eyes, now watching the 4 daggers attack its flesh. Unable to react in time, it let out a deafening scream. Aaron's spider silk continued to cling, adding another thrust of the dagger to seal the deal. It charged straight ahead. The monster on top had many chunks of flesh severed by Aaron. Blood sprayed everywhere, and it immediately received several powerful punches. The reach of the knife was quite short, so it could only fold its arms and endure. Not only was his physical strength immense, but his intellectual resilience was also extraordinary, allowing him to successfully gain the upper hand. Aaron glared at the monster, muttering to herself, just as I thought. Its main body is not strong enough, which is why it requires parasitism for protection. But she thought it would just wait for the monster to fall. However, it was stronger than Aaron had anticipated. When the monster was injured, the two female scientists on Aaron's team were also affected in the same way. They were tormented, screaming in agony. It had transferred the damage to the host it had bonded with. The monster once again wore a smug expression. I didn't expect this move. Aaron was annoyed, her eyes narrowing as she noticed something. She was completely bewildered by what she had just seen. It is indeed an ugly monster, and cruel as well. It kept threatening Aaron in a very relaxed and willing manner, even though its speech was still not quite clear in human language. You hurt me, I will pass it on to someone else. Upon hearing these words, the wounds on its body quickly healed and returned to their original state. This one is different from the monsters Aaron has faced before. Right now, the girl feels a sense of insecurity in her heart. She feels frustrated, thinking, this ability is really troublesome. Not stopping there, the monster continued to give Aaron an unexpected gift. He crudely pointed his finger at Aaron's beautiful face and said, "Ha, you have been taken in by us as well, the poisonous and life-sustaining aura of this one." Next, the arm was controlled by the parasite. It activated its powerful abilities one after another. She looked at her hand. Although resisting on my own, but Aaron couldn't control her hands. She was frightened and exclaimed, "My hands won't obey." Completely turned the situation around. Aaron could only surrender herself to the tightening grip of her own arm around her neck. Although they tried to resist, it was insignificant compared to the strength of the monster. Aaron frowned, breathing heavily with each labored gasp. To witness her opponent gradually choke under her hand was the most exhilarating thing the monster had ever felt. The pupils in many of its eyes dilated as it stared, trying to see clearly how the prey was gradually weakening. Its mouth opened wide, emitting a terrifying voice, "I will not give you the chance to empty your stomach." Now, the monster's gaze suddenly shifted. It glared down, clearly displeased. Aaron's small lips, though struggling to breathe, still curved into a faint smile. The hand that pushed the blister caused by the parasite slowly relaxed its grip on her neck. Aaron is commendable for her quick reflexes in responding promptly. She used the spider silk from her other hand to weave around one of her slender thighs, gradually pulling her uncontrollable arm free from the attack. She struggled to resist with all her strength. Aaron added, "I am very glad that the one who fell into the trap is me. If it were any other teammate, you would definitely have killed them by now." As she spoke, Aaron tightened the rope, pulling back several threads that were stretched so tight they nearly snapped. They glowed with purple energy. Aaron continued, "My threads can also manipulate the enemy's body." The hand controlled by Aaron gradually turned purple, resisting the tight spider silk that clung to each finger. This petite yet very strong girl continued to speak sternly in front of the enormous monster, and, of course, this tactic also worked on herself. Aaron stared at it, showing that she was not someone who could be easily crushed. Pulling 3 fingers, several strands of spider silk were collected. Aaron was once again controlling a new object to attack. The surgical knife was retrieved, stroked once, very smooth and gentle. Swoosh, swoosh, Aaron controlled the small knife, continuously slashing it by herself, raising high the hand controlled by the parasite of the monster. Now, the outer layer of skin had disappeared, and blood flowed endlessly. Yet, Aaron still maintained a very calm attitude, not showing any sign of pain as she provocatively said, "What a pity, it's over now." The monster on this side, having missed a strike, was furious. It was also very arrogant, taunting Aaron in return, "That's right, but next time, it will still make the 2 girls serve as shields, while its crude body hides behind and threatens, 'You're bleeding, no longer capable of fighting.'" Then, several eyes appeared out of nowhere, drawing closer to the 2 unconscious girls. And with anger, nearing the point of explosion, danger loomed. "If you run, I will kill them and then escape." Aaron hated its arrogant attitude, truly filthy and vile. She just wished she could send it straight to hell right then. Staring at it without blinking, she tried to hold herself back. "Haha, before you die by my hands, even if you kneel and beg me, I will not show mercy. From the beginning until now, I have focused solely on Aaron and the monster, whom no one remembered, as well as Zhou, who was also caught, were hanging in the air above." Suddenly, there was a series of 6 consecutive sounds. Surprised, the monster that was fighting Aaron turned its head to look. Now it just realized that from the beginning until now, it had subconsciously been unable to control itself. Zhou, the monster's eyes suddenly widened in shock, thinking, "Can't you control him?" It quickly came up with a solution. Then let this person log out first. What was said will be done. Leaving behind the monster, its tentacle compressed into a sharp point like a giant needle. The tentacle, under control, thrust straight toward the throat. Zhou quickly used his handcuffed hands to block it, but even that shattered. He struggled desperately. Only a few moments left until it's over. Zhou's gaze, filled with extreme fear, had faced life and death situations countless times, but each time was terrifying in a different way. Zhou was certain he couldn't avoid it, that his life was over. The urgent situation suddenly arose, and in front of Zhou, numerous purple spider threads were flying around in the air. He was surprised, frozen for a moment. What's going on? The energy stream transferred at high speed in the blink of an eye. With just one hand, Erin yanked the thread, pulling it sharply toward herself. The second time, it tightened and jerked away. Zhou, fearing a fall, screamed loudly, crying out in panic. The monster glared with wide eyes. Erin pulled back the hostage because she couldn't control Zhou, which was why she was able to rescue him so easily. The red-brained monster remained silent, saying nothing. Following the direction of Zhou's pull, his luck ran out, and he fell to the ground, sliding right under two traffic light poles. Erin was pleased as she looked at Zhou in front of her. She had saved someone, while he still hadn't recovered, shutting his eyes tightly and screaming in pain, only to realize the surroundings had grown gentler. It was only then that Zhou dared to slowly open his eyes. He had missed the crucial point. In pain, Zhou spoke with difficulty. "Thank you for saving my life." Suddenly, Zhou's face turned bright red, and his nose released a long stream of blood that flowed continuously. In this situation, being able to admire the little rose was truly an interesting experience. Zhou was once again moved and exclaimed, "Thank you, Goddess Bodhisattva." Looking down, the pervert continued indulging in his fantasies. Erin also arrived, utterly speechless. The bangs hid the displeased look in her eyes, and she just wanted to give this guy a beating he'd never forget. She immediately grabbed Zhou by the collar. Erin raised her fierce face and shouted, "Don't you have the ability to mutate like it? So you're just a perverted freak after all?" Zhou quickly pulled Erin back, trying to explain, "Hey, big sister, I've said a lot along the way, but you just don't believe me. Spare Zhou for now, but the creature that needs to be dealt with immediately is the one in front of us." Erin took a few steps forward and said, "Now that the monster can no longer parasitize, we have two plans." Erin's personality is very strong, quite different from our Zhou. The girl gazed deeply at the goal ahead and firmly stated, "Either we die together here. Two is that I will block the monster, you go outside and report the news." Erin also joked, "In the future, you can dance on my grave if you want." Indeed, she is a heroic beauty. Zhou's gaze was filled with contemplation. He was surprised by Erin. Zhou gritted his teeth, showing his determination to choose one of Erin's two options. In the end, he took a step forward and said, "I choose C." He swept past Erin with an air of confidence, and Erin was completely taken aback by his demeanor. However, immediately regaining a serious demeanor, he asked, What is it that the girl is seriously asking Zhou to choose? Did you think that a pervert like you, who's naked, would choose to run away? How could our Zhou live like that?" He clasped his hands tightly, gritted his teeth, and said with all his might, "Let's work together to smash that deep mushroom thing." Erin's attitude clearly showed interest, as if she had come to appreciate Zhou a little more, and she asked, "Oh, may I ask why you want to go and face death?" Zhou remained silent for a long while. He said nothing. He could only see determination and great ambition in their eyes. Behind him, Erin watched and smiled faintly. Now, in Zhou's mind, the scene of him facing death in his previous life resurfaced. He repeatedly reached out, seeking help, but no one was willing to extend a hand. And now, Zhou did not want that terrible thing to happen again to a girl like Erin. He stood in front, solemnly saying, "Because what I hate the most are those who abandon their teammates and flee when faced with a monster. Those kinds of people are even more trashy than monsters." This sentence from Zhou made Erin must think differently about you. She smiled faintly, satisfied with the spirit. Out loud, Erin muttered a few words that sounded a bit off. What a brave young man, or is he just an idiot? Inside, she thought to herself, he's probably an idiot. She crossed her arms, looked at him, and gave a wry smile. Very confident in the protection system. No wonder our young master is so bold. In front of a beautiful girl, he smugly muttered to himself, "Actually, the system has already told me. The main body of that monster is very weak. As long as it is immune to parasites, it's nothing at all. Based on this achievement, I'm sure I will be able to live peacefully within the extermination team's territory." Waiting for these two to strike, the monster became increasingly frustrated. It was itching all over hands, eyes, and legs and kept flailing its arms wildly, yelling and cursing. Humans, while fighting, still think about attracting the opposite sex. Truly, a lower-class creature. Go die. This scene stimulates it to its maximum power, its tentacles growing longer and more numerous. The monster slammed up and down, creating a powerful wave of impact. All the wriggling, parasite-infested creatures rushed toward Joey and Aaron. Both of them were stunned by the sudden ambush. Joey stepped forward fiercely, then immediately turned back, asking Aaron, "Don't you know how to control your body either? Quick, command me to fight." Aaron calmly remained silent, her arms clenched tightly. Joey added, "I am not afraid of parasites, but I also don't know how to fight them." As soon as she finished speaking, Aaron unleashed a fan technique she had just learned from a rather handsome young master. She spun 360 degrees, and from her fingertips, numerous threads of spiritual power shot out, pressing firmly on her eyelids. Aaron smiled and said, "Hey, just so you know, I can't guarantee your safety." Using Joey's body as a puppet, numerous threads cling to his hands, legs, neck, and head, turning him into a marionette. They quickly made contact and became familiar with every cell of his body. Aaron leaned forward, raising both hands high, wiggling her small fingers, completely focused on the entity before her. The corners of Aaron's mouth revealed a smug, determined smile. Standing in the middle of the hallway, Aaron spread his legs wide, gathered momentum, and with both hands extended, did his best to shout loudly. Immediately, Joey ran as fast as the wind. Each leap took him closer to the monster. The two female scientists had been completely possessed by the creature. Their eyes were entirely white, with no pupils in sight. The tentacles of the monster surged down in a flood, forming a wide path. Tightly entangle them, using the parasitic ability to control them to fight against Joey. You can't even avoid my tentacles. The moment their bodies rushed toward each other and collided, the triumphant monster opened its mouth wide again. How could you possibly break through my battle formation? Beneath its feet lay a prearranged trap. Aaron's 5 sharp fingers moved swiftly, skillfully maneuvering Joey with practiced ease. On this side, above the epidermis, the creature's essence flew out. His legs collided violently, gaining momentum. At the crucial moment, he shifted his body in mid-air, grabbing the scientist by the neck. With that, using the momentum, Joey prepared to swing the gun, delivering a fatal blow. The plan failed, the controlled female scientist was pulled back, missing the strike. Joey also landed to regain stability. Now the girl had lost all reason, screaming uncontrollably in a daze. That was just the beginning. Aaron's fingers twitched again. Immediately, Joey reacted. The dazzling peak shot forward at an incredibly fast speed, with no clear figure in sight. Aaron controlled Joey, sending both legs down. The scientist lay face down, rubbing his body against the red epidermis, full of parasites from the monster, successfully dodging an attack from the beast. Quickly slamming his muscular hand down, Joey skillfully pushed off with both feet. He glanced back confidently, smiling lightly. Behind them were 2 female scientists, continuously slipping and stumbling. Joey, the other one, lost her balance and nearly fell. Joey skimmed past the outer ring, where there were 2 very simple substitute bodies, which immediately ran toward the monster. The closer they got, the more numerous and denser the parasitic viruses became. The monster strained its body, howling in confusion. How can you become faster? It glared at many eyes before carefully considering. Annoyed, it realized that Aaron was leading that woman, the one who had controlled you afterward. From the outside, all the way out there. Aaron waved her hand, also adding a friendly, teasing expression. How cunning, huh? The girl giggled loudly. Ha ha. After this expression, Joey followed Aaron's guidance. He clenched his fists tightly and lunged at the monster. It immediately braced itself, its muscles tensing on the outside. The moment of confrontation was near. This was the big monster that would open the show for you. Joey gathered all his strength, screaming, "Die." The monster's epidermis, fully manifested, surged up, releasing numerous parasitic viruses to fight back. However, these were ineffective against our Joey. He was completely immune. Now, with Aaron's combat skills added to the mix, it charged forward without a second thought, striking fiercely. The monster, terrified, quickly shielded its head, its fragile brain vulnerable. It hissed, using psychological warfare, "You're too weak, you can't break my defense." He clenched his fist tightly, his gaze resolute, smiling as he stared intently at the target ahead. Joey gritted his teeth, lunging forward with all his might. Suddenly, the system appeared, announcing the activation of a special attribute. Immediately, an additional muscular, elastic body appeared, activating Joey's powerful punch. Quickly, the green slime from the mutated frog's properties oozed out. The boy cleverly combined his own abilities with Aaron's skills to swiftly defeat the monster. The system's interface chimed, signaling completion. The corrosive slime triggered the punch, which was then delivered directly into the monster's abdomen. The force used was so intense that it caused the surroundings to tremble. The the monster took the full blow. It was shaken, recoiling backward. Zhou struggled to gather his strength, the oppressive pressure surrounding them both. This strike caused it immense pain. Its eyes widened, as if it couldn't believe Zhou's strength. It let out a pitiful scream. Erin understood her skills. Therefore, when she saw the result, she was astonished. The girl widened her eyes, staring blankly as she thought to herself, "Oh, does he have other hidden powers?" The spot where the monster's flesh had been punched sagged, decaying, and punctured the monster's belly. Both of its hands were raised high, and its body felt the pain. The monster stared wide-eyed at the hole in its stomach, its body trembling incessantly, saying, "Decomposition? There's no way it could be that powerful, is there?" Zhou withdrew his hand, and dust flew up around his feet. The gaze of our Zhou shone brightly. He stared directly at the result, still focused and serious after his determination and courage. Seeing Zhou's expression, the monster was completely shaken. It was straining its body, yet it still responded with great confidence. "It's not over yet, you all. You can't kill me, I can transfer the damage." After a while, after continuously using its own abilities and still feeling the pain, its largest eye glanced downward in surprise. The monster was dazed, stunned to the point of being thrown off balance. It lowered its head to clearly see the hole in its belly, still there, and gradually being corroded even more. The monster howled, "Why is the wound still there? Looking over here. Since when have you not been paying attention?" Erin successfully freed the two young female scientists and Erin is laying the two girls down in a corner far away. Erin gathered a handful of corners in her hands, the fur looking like a cluster of beads. A lot of blood flowed from Erin's hand. His eyes were fixed on the monster. "Sorry, but I've already taken all your parasitic stomachs." The two scientists were rescued, fortunately still conscious, and they struggled to breathe. Very forceful. Erin clenched her small fist tightly, crushing the mass of shattered intestines, blood splattering everywhere. Erin used even more strength, thoroughly annihilating it, until there is nothing left. Erin relaxed her hand. She turned her face toward the monster and once again put on a mischievous, challenging expression. "Hee, I'm really looking forward to seeing what would happen if you were turned into a specimen." The triumphant attitude of Erin hurt the monster's pride, and it glared down at her, showing a clear expression of displeasure. Without saying anything more, a green fluid oozed from the gaps in its teeth. The large, foul-smelling set of teeth tightened. They ground together with a creaking sound, exuding a pressure of dominance as parasitic viruses spread. Immediately, the floating, human-shaped shadows in the sky reacted. They also continuously gritted their teeth and growled in unison, making eerie sounds. The large heads floated in midair, growing bigger and moving more violently. The pressure bearing down was overwhelming. The heads exploded in midair, with blood splattering and dispersing into the atmosphere, dense and thick. The scene was truly horrifying. "Didn't expect that this monster had so many terrifying tricks up its sleeve," Zhou and Erin both said, utterly surprised as they looked up. The two people quickly changed their expressions, no longer showing the ease from just a few minutes ago, but instead, anxiety. The red mass in the sky had just absorbed everything back into their bodies. To regain energy and recover, Zhou stood frozen in shock at its actions, shouting, "Is the blood gathering? The form of this monster is developing strangely. It is growing larger, pitch black, with a bloodshot eye. Its shape is changing." All they could see was the dark figure with a hole in its belly. Erin and Zhou were both intensely focused on its movements. They narrowed their eyes, watching the difficult target with caution. Both of them shared a similar feeling, a mix of fear and excitement at the new challenge. Before their eyes, all they could see was a vast amount of viscous red slime, constantly moving in waves like the sea. It surged upwards with a fiery intensity, swirling like a blazing fire. Now, this formless substance began to gradually calm down. It stretched out, forming a definite shape. The next moment, in front of Zhou and Erin appeared a group of leaping figures. They spread out widely, resembling a large fire. However, this group was actually a monster not easy to deal with. It stared at Zhou and Erin's eyes glowed with a burning desire. After a while, the slimy, indistinct mass from before had successfully transformed into a solid body. At first glance, one of the arms, muscular and red, compared to Zhou, was like heaven and earth. The monster has returned, and it is even more powerful. A few minutes ago, it opened its mouth full of sharp teeth and let out ear-splitting roars. Its body has developed more than before. It completely turned into a monster, exuding the fierce might of actual combat, no longer fighting with mere consciousness. Erin and Zhou's expressions changed. The two glared with vigilance, the corners of Zhou's mouth twitching uncontrollably. The head, with its fragile brain now carefully wrapped and shielded, possessed 4 bright eyes. The monster, confident and excited, spoke loudly, "This is the first time a human has seen me in this form. Hope you don't disappoint me." After these words, its red-hot fist was quickly swung toward the front. Eren, just now, was very far away, proving that this terrifying monster is extremely fast. Only now did I realize. Eren widened her eyes in surprise. She couldn't help but admire, muttering to herself, so fast, just in a few moments. Then she reflected, the timing was perfect. Eren was knocked back 10 meters. The little girl was sent flying by a knockout blow from the giant monster, still holding a defensive stance. Receiving such a strike, Eren wanted to regain her footing and regenerate. Her back slammed hard into the wall behind her, sending shards of water flying. Eren cried out in pain, "It's too much." Eren was displeased, her teeth clenched in frustration as she glared at it. In her mind, she wondered why it was no longer on the same level as before. Its speed was no joke. Just as she thought for a moment, it had already stood up and was charging toward her chest, its hand turning red. Eren was still in shock. Eren continued to endure another flying strike and gust of wind. It quickly grabbed hold of Eren's head. The weight of the 100-kilogram body forced her forward, grinding the girl's body against the floor. Eren's face was pressed hard against the ground. She felt pain, closed her eyes, held her breath, and resigned herself. From a further perspective, the monster's strike was extremely venomous. It scraped Eren, sliding across the floor with such force that it left a deep, long indent. That was when Eren challenged the monster. Now, it is giving her a lesson. Not letting go of Eren, the monster then leaped up, grabbing Eren and throwing her forcefully to the ground like a sack of garbage. It exerted tremendous force, causing tremors to spread throughout the surrounding area. For the second time, Eren's back was struck violently. She did nothing more, like a doll in the hands of a monster, freely toying with her. Spit and blood from Eren's mouth sprayed out on the spot. The girl's eyes were pale, her expression haggard. Eren was constantly tormented, and it seemed as though she could no longer endure. Finally, it stopped, standing before Eren's dying body. It stood silently, while the girl curled up in the hole, lying in a pitiful, trembling state. Life goes up and down, again and again. The monster lowered its face and, opening its mouth wide, asked, "Did you just strike me?" It turned its 4 eyes backward, glancing at the next target, Zhou. Its face was cold and sharp as it spoke, "Is it you?" Zhou on this side also understood the monster's next move. He furrowed his brow, thinking, and muttered, "This is bad." Zhou was also very confused, unsure of how to handle the situation. In a few seconds, without any warning, the monster pressed its face close to Zhou. Our Zhou was held in place by its terrifying speed. The muscular, reddish body of this creature charged forward, its feet scraping a long, curved streak of light across the ground. It delivered a kick to Zhou's face. Blood sprayed from his mouth, and with just that one blow, he tumbled away. Hit with a deadly strike, Zhou was slammed to the ground. He was no better off than Eren. Dust and debris scattered everywhere. Zhou was pushed back, right into the position near the long-haired scientist. Her hands and feet were no longer intact. All the bones and joints in his body were broken, twisted in a horrible way, like a soulless corpse. Zhou was battered, unconscious. The system table appeared with a notification. Warning, all bones are broken and shattered. Internal organs are completely destroyed. Fatal injuries detected. The immortality attribute activated throughout the entire skeleton, with the injuries regenerating and recovering immediately afterward. The joints of Zhou's foot instantly twisted. It was replenished with restorative energy from the rotating system, as if in an instant, returning to its normal state. Having completed everything, Zhou immediately opened his eyes wide, full of astonishment. Taking a deep breath through his mouth, he exhaled and shouted loudly, "I'm done for, I'm going to die." The cockroach god system immediately appeared beside him, shouting a warning, "Zhou, don't move. I can't guarantee that I can save you if you take another kick." Zhou, upon hearing this, became even more frightened. The situation was still unstable and chaotic, and he didn't know how to respond. So, quick-witted as he was, Zhou simply collapsed, pretending to be dead. He tightly shut his eyes, seeing nothing at all, and acted as if he knew nothing. In his stomach, he muttered to himself, "Ah, that's right. Feigning death, carrying the characteristics of a monster." However, in terms of physical strength and skills, it was far too weak compared to the monster. Zhou could only rely on Eren. He squinted his eyes, forcing himself to glance at her, silently thinking in his mind, "Hang in there, big sister, you must win." After the dust mist disappeared, the monster gradually revealed itself near Zhou. It stood with its legs spread wide, fists clenched, aggressively observing Zhou's movements. But Zhou remained unshaken, not daring to move an inch. The monster curled its lip, laughing a few times. Its teeth were bared, filled with smugness. So weak now. Suddenly, a loud noise came from behind it. The monster was startled. It turned around in curiosity and let out a loud roar to investigate what had happened. Eren can still fight, taking advantage of the moment when the huge monster isn't paying attention. Aaron delivered a close-range kick to the back of its neck. Her gaze was sharp, targeting the creature's brainstem. The monster turned around, only to discover. Swish! The illusion of the strike it unleashed was too fast. Got it, Aaron. The monster grabbed the girl's small leg while she was still floating in the air. Aaron was caught off guard, and she was very confused. She played with her eyes, narrowed them, gritted her teeth, and thought to herself, how could this be happening? For Aaron, the speed of the monster now felt like catching a butterfly. The power of its 4 glowing eyes surged, and with its massive, rough arm, it swatted Aaron to the ground. In that moment, the little girl was no different from a toy in its hands. Aaron was in pain, only able to utter a few words in desperation. Holding one leg, Aaron, the brutal monster, swung back and forth from side to side. Up and down, poor Aaron was beaten mercilessly. She was far too weak compared to the monster, so she kept taking hit after hit. Smacking his forehead, it continued to throw him off. Aaron slammed the person into the ceiling, tossing the girl like a ball. Aaron was tossed back and forth through the gardens until her body withered away. The recent compression caused her to be stuck to the ceiling. Aaron's face and hair hung down, with blood pouring out of her body endlessly. Aaron, broken in body and spirit, also meant that Joey's last hope had vanished. The monster temporarily spared Aaron, tearing apart the chair that she and the 2 scientists had once used to restrain its parasitized body. Holding the chair, he looked at it and said, "You forced me into this." As soon as the words left his mouth, Aaron's body fell from the ceiling. The monster raised the chair high, aimed with precision, and focused all its strength toward her, showing no signs of letting up when it saw her. Aaron was completely motionless, continuing to loudly speak the same sentence from before. So annoying. I aimed precisely at the target just as Aaron fell close to the ground. This terrifying monster hurled the chair into Aaron's stomach. The moment the chair struck her body, it shattered into pieces. Aaron had to endure this brutal force for the 3rd time. The small of her back slammed directly against the wall. She was in pain, her body, bricks, and stones flying everywhere, stuck to the wall. Aaron crouched down, dragging a long streak of red blood behind her. She leaned against the wall, as if all her strength had been drained, breathing in ragged, wheezing gasps. Now, she could no longer control her limbs as she normally would. She sat, leaning against the wall, trembling in great distress. Aaron struggled to bear the pain in her head, thinking, both legs are broken. I must admit, I'm impressed by her strength and her unyielding will to fight until the very end. Aaron tried to suppress the pain, her eyes glaring at the monster. She clenched her teeth, not making a sound. In her heart, she thought, it hurts, but thankfully, my arm should still be usable. Joey on this side is feigning death, observing the situation. The monster, at this moment, realizes. As long as Aaron still showed signs of life, it continued to move closer, not giving up on her. Joey thought, even the deputy captain of the extermination team couldn't defeat this monster. How could a regular human body, after receiving just a few skills from your mutated side, be nothing now? He had just feigned death, not daring to strike because he feared that another blow would be the end of him. He clenched his teeth, thinking, who else could come to save us? Knowing he couldn't fight back, instead of throwing his life away waiting for death, Joey focused on thinking of a way to strike quickly and win swiftly. Suddenly, he heard a voice beside his ear. Hey, you. Joey was startled and turned his eyes to look. She is the long-haired scientist. The girl still had a bit of strength left, lying on the floor with her body trembling. She struggled to stretch her hand toward Joey, barely able to say, give it to the deputy team leader. Aaron let her unleash her power. On the small hand of the scientist was a small red stone. She tried to divide it for Joey, receiving the spirit stone that, according to what was said, could save the dire situation. After the scientist handed Joey the small demon stone, he gave it to Aaron. Joey gazed at it thoughtfully, then decisively took the red demon stone. Joey was pretending to be dead, secretly glancing at the monster, thinking, how can I throw this demon stone to her? The monster believed he was dead and paid no attention to the cockroach god. Suddenly, the cockroach god appeared and gave Joey advice. If you use the elasticity of your muscles now, there might still be an opportunity, as long as you follow my calculations. It stated its judgment. Currently, the highest success rate is only 10%. Joey was startled by this result and exclaimed, 10% is the highest? What's the difference between that and death? The cockroach god seriously warned, 10% survival and 100% will be beaten to death, choose one of the two. He gritted his teeth upon hearing this result. Deep down, Joey had already made his own decision. Joey slowly stood up, muttering to himself, damn it. The system rang out, utilize the resilience of your muscles. Immediately afterward, his body underwent a noticeable transformation. His muscles gradually expanded, even tearing through his clothes. Joey let out a powerful roar and then used all his strength to soar quickly toward the monster. It seemed to sense the fluctuation as well, turning its head to look back. The cockroach god beside him anxiously reported, the monster reacted earlier than expected. The probability of success is now only 5%. But that did not discourage Zhou. He pushed himself to run faster, betting his life. Right now, all he could do was gamble with his life. Zhou possessed agility, so he easily leaped up, clearing the monster's head in a single bound. The monster, however, didn't understand, merely watching him. The cockroach god hurriedly reported, only 1% left. At the same time, he resolutely threw the piece of demon stone, silently praying for success. But now, Eren, after the intense battle with the monster, was still sitting motionless. Although Zhou had the advantage of resilience, it was not enough to escape the monster. It easily grabbed his calf, causing Zhou's entire body to stiffen, not even giving him time to throw the magic stone in his hand. The monster asked in a deep voice, "What do you think you're doing?" Zhou remained silent in his heart, feeling extremely panicked and confused, not knowing what to do. As soon as the cockroach god finished speaking, the monster threw him forcefully to the ground. It slowly walked toward Zhou, who was lying motionless on the floor. The powerful strike caused his head to bleed significantly, bringing intense pain. The monster behind him lifted its enormous foot above Zhou's body and laughed with great satisfaction. Zhou's gaze was filled with determination. He thought, who said the probability of success is only 0%? This position is truly the last opportunity. It seems that all of this is part of your plan. Zhou shouted loudly, gripping the stone he had tightly clenched, which was thrown accurately. The monster also stomped down on his body with great force, causing the floor to shake and sink. It laughed in delight, mocking Zhou as it thought he was dead, too weak to survive. But the monster's gaze suddenly flashed with astonishment. It blurted out, "This is bad." Beneath the monster's feet, a purple spiderweb formed, creating a shield to protect it. It gritted its teeth in frustration as its plans were ruined. A spiderweb? It's that girl. On the other side, the purple spiderweb had wrapped around a slender body. Speaking up, he said, "You actually risked your life to give me the demon stone." The person was none other than Eren, surrounded by a web of spider silk. She was deeply moved and exclaimed, "I am truly touched." Eren's hand also sprouted claws that controlled the spider webs. She used her ability to manipulate them, wrapping them tightly around the monster, leaving it stunned. Therefore, Eren could easily make the monster fall. Her right arm at this moment also formed something resembling a sharp drill bit. Eren raised her arm toward the monster and shouted, "Snow spider sword, emerge from your sheath." She hated it deeply. "Talking monster, go die." Suddenly, a powerful force tightly held her back. Eren was surprised, her eyes wide open, thinking about something. The monster gripped so tightly that her right arm trembled. Calmly, she spoke, "Can you use my power, human?" It raised its hand to grasp the tip of its nose, its tone sharp with disdain, yet still very weak. The monster only needs to exert a little force to snap its tail. Eren was grabbed by the monster's throat, and upon seeing this scene, she was stunned as well. Then, it immediately used its sharp claws to stab through her abdomen. From there, fresh blood sprayed out, splattering everywhere. Zhou stood up from afar, seeing Eren pierced by the sharp claws of the monster. She was effortlessly lifted by its unusually strong arm. "You were beaten to a pulp by the monster," clutching your injured arm to your chest. You nervously thought, "Is this it? Is it really over now?" The monster laughed triumphantly when it saw Eren lying motionless and shouted, "I'll finish you off." Suddenly, a loud noise rang out. The monster screamed in panic as its two arms were chopped off by someone. At the same time, a stranger picked up Eren and ran away. The monster angrily turned toward them and snarled. Zhou also turned in surprise towards the direction it was heading. Eren was seriously injured, still unconscious, and rescued by Fellow, who carried her in his arms. At the same time, two people, one male and one female, stepped down. It seems like Fellow's teammates. The monster stands at a distance and asks, "Who are you?" The three of them confidently faced it directly, in order, Harley, Corivilius, and Fellow. Harley turned his head to look beside him and saw the scientist unconscious on the floor. She then stepped forward to inspect. How pitiful. The internal organs, bones, and veins have all been shattered, as if they had turned into a pot of porridge. Harley is the leader of Assassination Squad number 10. She has healing abilities and has summoned an emerald green demon stone, saying seriously, "I need to treat them right now." Fellow is the captain of Assassination Squad number 2. Hearing Harley say that, he reassured her, "Don't worry too much. No monster can surpass me or harm you." Captain Corey stretched his muscles and then spoke, "I'll take care of that, just playing around with that monster for a bit. It's strange that it can talk." At this moment, Eren, being carried by Fellow, had awakened and weakly warned him in a whisper, "Captain, this monster is truly something special. Please be careful with it." Corey turned around, smiling to reassure, don't worry, I'm special too. Harley was treating two scientists when she suddenly shouted, both of you, shut up. I need a quiet space to administer the treatment. She spoke and then closed her eyes, focusing on summoning the power from the shard of demon stone. From the floor, a sprout slowly emerged, piercing through the earth. The technique of rebirth. Harley had created a huge flower for the female scientist who was in a coma inside. She created another flower for another scientist. Next, Fellow gently placed. Aaron was severely injured, no less than a flower in need of treatment. And finally, it was Zhou-Yi, the only one still conscious, who stepped forward to heal. Although you were quite surprised, you still trusted, lay down, and thought, what about the flower? Zhou-Yi lay down, feeling an incredibly comfortable and dizzying sensation, so warm it felt as though he were soaking in a hot spring. In just a moment, he drifted into a deep sleep. Suddenly, Cockroach God appeared, angrily reminding him, don't pass out, I'll inject adrenaline. Zhou-Yi was pricked by the needle, feeling pain and crying out, it hurts so much. Harley, who was using healing magic, saw him crying and flailing his arms, feeling confused. It doesn't hurt, though. After the injection was done, Cockroach God looked at him with great satisfaction, regardless of Zhou-Yi's exhausted state. You're very lucky, young man. Open your eyes and witness the world's top-tier fighting power today. Over here, Cory strides towards the massive monster. He casually negotiates, I am Cory Villius, the captain of the extermination squad. If you understand human speech, why don't we have a conversation? The monster snarls in response, we don't converse with food. After the monster's response, the entire atmosphere became eerily quiet. Suddenly, from the cracks in the walls, a red, slimy substance began to drip down. Cory stared at them in confusion, not understanding what was happening. The mucus flowed more and more. The slimy pit created more monstrous effigies. Then it said, I have devoured all my kind and am imprisoned here. All of you will die here, it declared loudly. Immediately after, all the figures charged forward at once. They screamed wildly and rushed towards the extermination squad that was standing. After the loud scream rang out, Zhou-Yi, emerging from the healing flower, saw the number of monsters and quickly warned. There are so many monsters. Above, below, left, and right, all are monsters. Fellow was now also in a battle-ready state. His entire body was muscular, and his hands constantly spun, creating streams of air. In the blink of an eye, countless gusts of wind appeared. His gaze was filled with murderous intent. The gusts of wind formed into a powerful whirlwind, spiraling around the monsters and causing them to scream in agony. A portion of the winds was controlled by Fellow, surrounding and protecting the area where Harley was healing. Zhou-Yi looked up at the scene before him. With the gust of wind, it had transformed into a barrier of swirling vortex. The monsters only dared to stand outside and watch, not daring to risk their lives by charging in. Fellow stood in front of them, the very person who had created the whirlwind that delivered the news to Harley, now focused on treating the injuries at the back. Harley, although I can stop the monster, I cannot handle the stench of blood, so try to endure it. She remained focused on her healing task. Given the current situation, it had to be accepted. I will forgive you, you useless piece of trash. Zhou-Yi was stunned as he witnessed everything, thinking, could this truly be the strength of a team leader? At this moment, outside the vortex, only Cory stood facing the monster. It growled, making sounds, but they were not very clear. Since the two captains have stopped me, then I'll deal with you first. The slimy substance dripped down, and it was still in the form of a monstrous mannequin. It let out a scream, and the slimy mass immediately gathered toward the body of the monster that had lost both of its arms. Suddenly, a plume of red smoke rose, obscuring his vision, making it impossible for him to see clearly what it was about to do. In the blink of an eye, a fierce roar rang out. The monster had now transformed into a form several hundred times larger than before. Cory stood before it, nothing more than a tiny ant. Zhou-Yi saw this scene, and it was like a bolt of lightning striking his ear. Stunned, he exclaimed, it had actually transformed 3 times. This is truly profound beyond measure. He stood before the enormous monster without any fear. On the contrary, Cory calmly praised it. I truly envy you, being able to freely change your body size at will. He's not even poked the monster yet, uncle. Right now, I also want to become as big as that. It seems like I need to do a lot of warm-up exercises at home. The monster did not respond to Cory. It kept growling like that, raising its fist down toward him. Cory remained very calm, gently tilting his head to dodge the attack. Once he had successfully dodged it, he turned to mock it. Oh my, that was so close. The monster was enraged, using its large mouth to roar as if to intimidate. Cory reacted quickly, jumping up to dodge the next punch. Then he lowered his head again to avoid being hit by the monster. Cory continued to twist and tumble with such agility that even if it wanted to catch him, it couldn't. The monster was incredibly frustrated, unable to contain its rage as it cursed, "That head keeps dodging and evading like a damn insect." Just as Cory was about to land, it suddenly noticed the tentacle behind it was heading straight for him. The tentacles of the monster successfully wrapped around Cory's waist, surprising him slightly. It used its tentacles to pull hard. Cory opened his mouth wide, smugly saying, "You're definitely done for." He showed no signs of fear, calmly drawing the sword from his back. Cory executed a few decisive strikes, accompanied by the shrieks coming from the monster. His foot gently landed on the ground, and it was at that moment the scream ceased. Cory's eyes gleamed with cold, murderous intent as he calmly stepped over the monster's body, which he had sliced into numerous pieces. In the blink of an eye, it was as if only a part of its body remained on the monster. Filled with immense doubt, what in life had happened? The monster was so terrified of Cory that just seeing his finger point was enough to make its entire body tremble, not daring to utter a single sound. With a mere snap of his fingers, he tore apart the monster's remaining body, scattering it into the air. Cory let out a soft laugh after finishing handling it. The slimy substances continued to drip down onto the floor, and among them, a microorganism fell. It seemed to be the thing that allowed the monster from earlier to speak human language. He swiftly grabbed it. Cory looked at it in the small jar and laughed loudly, full of joy. "Got him, got him." He raised the bottle high and cheered with joy. Cory hurriedly waved his hand, signaling to his teammates. "I have successfully captured the first speaking monster in history. Should I give it a name or something?" Both Harley and Fellow were provoked by its words. Rolling her eyes, she angrily shouted, "Is this the time for you to be playing around? You should think of a way to explain to Congress that the newly constructed research institute has now been destroyed." Joey peeked his head out from the healing flower and witnessed Fellow and Harley simultaneously cursing, "Stupid superior." The young master murmured in a low voice, "This is truly too powerful." At this moment, the cockroach god also appeared, calmly asking, "Do you notice the difference? Alright, that's enough. Now you can faint." As soon as the words left his mouth, a sea of darkness engulfed Joey's vision. It was already late into the night, and in an apartment of a neatly arranged condominium. Joey struggled to open his eyes, slowly awakening. At this moment, for some reason, he woke up soaking in the bathtub, so dazed that his face turned red, and wondered where he was. Joey tried to calm himself down, feeling very confused about how he ended up here, and shouted, "Why am I in the bathtub?" Suddenly, he sensed something unusual. Glancing over, strangely, behind the curtain, the vague silhouette of a woman's body in the bath appeared. Joey's face turned as red as a tomato, his heart pounding fiercely, screaming inside, "What is happening right now?" In Joey's heart, there was fear, not understanding what was going on, when the girl behind the curtain, none other than Erin, appeared. She gently pulled the curtain, poked her head outside, and was surprised to see that he was awake. He finally woke up, huh? Erin calmly stood naked in front of Joey, though not fully exposed, with only a faint mist obscuring her and an announcement. "Because your genetic test results have not yet come back, you must stay for another night. But right now, the prison is severely damaged. Therefore, I can only take you to my home." Joey shrank back, his face turning bright red as he stared at her intently. He shyly stammered, asking, "Is it really necessary for us to be together like this, drenched and completely naked?" Erin was frustrated, crossing her arms over her chest as she replied, "You're really such a coward. This is the only time hot water is available. What are you going to do if you don't bathe with me?" She solemnly introduced herself again, "I am Erin, the vice captain of the number 1 extermination team. Thank you for your help back then. What is your name? Let's get to know each other." Joey shyly and awkwardly responded, I think you can just call me Joey." Erin reminded, "Hey, buddy, move back in." Then, she forcefully placed her foot into the bathtub, splashing water everywhere. At this point, Erin comfortably sat in the same bathtub as Joey. Although he sat opposite her, he was too embarrassed to look her in the face. "Erin, you seem to be completely unguarded around Joey. Even Erin was very concerned about your health." "Hey, we're here now, turn around and sit still so I can check your injuries." Joey's face turned bright red, as if it were about to steam with every touch from her. His face flushed, and he silently thought, her awareness of the boundaries between men and women is really lacking. If this continues, I'll have to. After the inspection was completed, Erin's voice interrupted his dark thoughts. "I'm leaving now, that's it. The wounds on my back have healed, not even a scar remains. Your friend also has some abilities, right?" After saying that, she patted Joey on the shoulder, like a close friend would, causing him to jump in surprise. Suddenly, the cockroach god appeared and said, "I checked and found your heart rate has reached 120 beats per minute. Male hormones are being released in large quantities, and blood is starting to flow, concentrating downward. Do you want me to prepare a reproduction system for you, Joey? As if the cockroach god had hit a sensitive spot, his face turned even redder, and he angrily refused immediately. No, no need. Suddenly, Erin's call broke the awkward silence between him and the cockroach god. Look at the wound on my chest. She pointed at the injury and continued, that monster was really ruthless. Although the captain helped me heal, this scar is still here. If you don't believe it, then look at this. Joey was stunned by the sight of the mountains before him, his mouth agape. The cockroach god's announcement rang out, the breeding mode is about to be activated. Countdown begins, year 4, 3. When he shouted, the two of them hurriedly stepped out of the bathtub. Joey slammed the bathroom door shut, not forgetting to call out, I have something urgent to do, you can keep bathing. He suddenly left, causing the room to fall silent, despite Erin still sitting in the bathtub, not understanding what had just happened. Joey leaned against the bathroom door, panting heavily. You are embarrassed, blaming the cockroach god, yet you only need to stay for one more second. I will die in this society immediately. What have you done, system? The male protagonist on the news program reports the news. Recently, there have been intense disturbances in the area surrounding Manhwa City. Approximately 50 kilometers away, the security bases managed by the state-controlled armed group have also been attacked. Joey stared blankly at the location displayed on the news. It seems that this is the place where I used to live before. Has everyone already died? The news screen displayed images of the current state of Manhwa City, which had become desolate and ruined. The male MC continued speaking. Due to the sudden incident when the extermination team received the distress signal, they immediately rushed to the scene. There were no survivors at this small security base. Joey stared at the report, silently feeling a sense of relief. If I do not leave that place, perhaps I have already been killed by the monster. The announcement from the bulletin echoed once again. We would like to remind all citizens that the abyss is a passage leading to another world. If you find any clues or discover anything unusual, please report it immediately to the relevant authorities. He was stunned by this news. The person was sitting on the sofa. At this moment, the cockroach god appeared just in time and reassured Joey, stop thinking nonsense, there aren't that many words like that in the world. Let me deliver this good news to you, Chubby Xiao, the good friend you accidentally stepped on and killed, has now been resurrected. On the system's King of Guards registry, the success rate is 100%. There are two options below, summon or summon the King of Guards. Joey stared in astonishment at the system screen, while the cockroach, flying beside him, smiled with satisfaction. It happily introduced itself. From now on, Chubby Xiao will be immortal, no matter how many times he is killed. As long as you are his master, he will have no limit to how many times he can be resurrected. He frowned, reading carefully and exclaiming, it looks really intense, like a cockroach that has undergone countless resurrections. How could it possibly help the system? The cockroach god calmly explained, Chubby Xiao can be continuously upgraded. For now, it serves the purpose of helping share the vision with you. Joey hesitated, then chose to summon. The system screen became distorted, and the image of Chubby Xiao on the screen gradually began to move. Chubby Xiao was moved when he saw him and exclaimed, Big brother, I have missed you so much. The chubby little kid suddenly startled at Joey's current appearance. It dejectedly remarked, why does Big brother look so bad lately? It looks like a human, yet you are also silent, not knowing how to respond. The cockroach god beside him introduced, you can command it to go anywhere you wish. As long as you close your eyes, you can see the vision of the little fatty. It flew around the room. Joey also didn't understand what it wanted to do. Suddenly, the chubby little one zoomed down through the crack of a door into some room. It turned out that it was the bathroom. It was flying, watching Erin soak in the bathtub from above. By the time Joey realized the direction the chubby kid was flying, he suddenly remembered and screamed in horror, where did you fly off to? Get out here, hurry up. It turns out that the chubby kid intentionally flew in here so that Joey could see and casually respond, but I felt like the big brother was trying to peek inside. At this moment, Erin also noticed the appearance of the chubby little one. She raised her hand and shot a spider web toward it. The chubby kid immediately panicked when Erin's spider silk tightly bound him. In the blink of an eye, his body melted into the web, ascending to the heavens. Joey, though outside, had witnessed everything. His eyes widened in shock, and blood immediately shot out of his nose, causing Joey to fall backward. The cockroach god saw Joey lying on the floor, trembling with a pale face, and suddenly remembered the embarrassing matter, adding more. I forgot to tell you that, when you and the chubby kid share your feelings, if the little fatty dies, you'll be the one to suffer the consequences. The next morning, on a busy street, the test report was thrown harshly onto the table. Erin crossed her arms and announced to Joey, who was calmly eating breakfast, your test results are in. Everything is normal. You also take the report file and look at it. Suddenly, she gently told him, you're free now. Zhou Yi's gaze flickered with a trace of contemplation. He placed the stack of reports down on the table. Zhou Yi stood up seriously and said decisively, I want to join the extermination team. Aaron was very surprised by his decision and immediately spoke up to warn him, our mortality rate is extremely high. Zhou Yi immediately retorted, isn't the death rate of ordinary people already high enough? Brother, your eyes are filled with determination as you persuade Aaron. I am also someone who has awakened a supernatural ability. I have fought side by side with her before, and currently, my background is also very clean. Can you let me join? Aaron also seriously assessed him in one go. She didn't stop Zhou Yi anymore. The assassination squad is selected once every 4 years, and the competition will take place in 7 days. Although his skill level was NDT 0, there were rumors that this year will be the busiest year in history. Aaron said. Zhou Yi frowned tightly, feeling tense. He cautiously asked for help from the vice captain. Aaron, please think of a solution for me. I don't think you are the kind of person shameless enough to not repay the favor of saving your benefactor's life. Aaron lowered her head and stood up. She was extremely excited as she praised, I admire your shameless spirit. Fine. I will give you the opportunity to participate in a special training course. From a distance, someone was secretly watching the entire story unfold between the two of them. The person was none other than Corey, the scientist. Standing beside him, he curiously asked the team leader, why do you want me to fake Zhou Yi's medical report? The results of the genetic test revealed something that was not human. He was worried and reported it. But Corey still did not explain, as if he had his own plans. Corey only implied in his response, let the bullet fly a little longer. After the conversation with Aaron, inside the training base, at the center, there is a huge round door, which serves as the entrance to the divine continent. Zhou Yi was brought to her, and he was utterly surprised, exclaiming, what? Aaron was still very cheerful, despite him angrily reproaching her. Is your special training just throwing me straight into the abyss? Are you joking with me? In the abyss teeming with monsters, the power of those inside is on a completely different level from those outside. It is also said that even an army entering here has a very high mortality rate. How could I possibly level up in this abyss? In Zhou Yi's mind, there was a deep sense of injustice toward Aaron. He had imagined countless monsters with terrifying, unimaginable strength. He thought for a moment, then turned his head to look at his future teammates and assess them. In his team, it seemed there were only 4 boys and 1 girl. The tallest and most muscular guy is Justin, the only female member is Lu Yi, the young man with a scholarly appearance is Sukai, and lastly, the one who looks childlike is Song Tao. Aaron then spoke up, this abyss is a place filled with countless holes created by gigantic insects during the disaster. She continued to introduce, each abyss is connected to another world. Depending on the degree of collapse of that space, it is divided into levels from E to S. Of course, the easiest level to deal with is E, and level S is the most dangerous. Aaron warned, the higher the level, the stronger the monsters hiding there, and the corresponding space becomes more difficult. By passing through this spatial gate, you can enter the abyss that the extermination team has explored. Aaron pointed at the divine portal behind her, effortlessly pressing the control panel on the door. The beeping sound of the screen continued to ring out. Aaron smiled gently and then said, the mission of the extermination team is to enter the abyss, destroy the monsters, and prevent invasions from other worlds from becoming a reality. She raised her red demon stone as an example. Killing monsters in the abyss will help our demon stone weapons grow. Aaron pressed the start-up screen. The gate of the divine vessel slowly began to open. She crossed her arms, standing confidently in front of the gate, announcing that the gate of the divine vessel was open. Aaron commanded Justin. You are the one with the most experience in the deepest abyss, so you will be the captain leading the entire team. Justin seriously accepted the mission, following orders into a certain forest. Behind the teleportation gate, the training team for exterminating the abyss entered the silent forest with a danger level of E. At that moment, the 5 of them were brought to the center of the forest. Unable to determine the direction, Zhou Yi was amazed, as it was his first time experiencing this. Oh my god, is this the abyss? Suddenly, the snake-tailed monkey monster sensed the movement of humans and appeared. He saw it on the tree and exclaimed in surprise, do snake-tailed monkeys really exist? On the other side, a giant spider suddenly appeared, causing Zhou Yi to jump in shock. A spider that big. He looked around, his mouth agape in awe. The tree is huge, it's so tall. Zhou Yi kept running around the forest, exploring, leaving the entire team of abyssal exterminators speechless. Are we still on Earth? Stepping through the gate feels like entering a whole different world. This forest is exactly as its name suggests, incredibly silent. The leader of the group is Justin, and the one bringing up the rear is Zhou Yi. He suddenly turned his head. Justin threw his bag at him, leaving Zhou Yi dumbfounded. At this moment, he spoke with a warning, you little brat, you're not allowed to touch any of the monsters in the abyss. All you have to do is follow us and carry our luggage. Joey looked at him in confusion. In his heart, Justin was incredibly jealous of him. This brat was staying with the coach. Aaron, last night, who the hell gave you permission to attack my goddess? Joey's face darkened upon hearing him. His attitude made Justin both angry and frown as he asked, "What's wrong? You don't want to do it?" However, contrary to his thoughts, Joey smiled brightly. "When it aligns with my desires, it's wonderful. I promise I won't touch a single monster. I will be a diligent logistician, providing support." Justin was bewildered when he saw his mood and heard his words. At this moment, his heart was filled with a sense of triumph, pleased with himself. It was safe now. He was slightly stunned and muttered, "This kid seems to have a problem with his head." Joey happily waved his hand at Sukai and Songtao, flattering them, "Big brothers, give me all the backpacks." He cheerfully walked towards Lu Yi, saying, "Give me the bag." Joey had not finished speaking when she immediately rejected him, "No need, I'll do it myself." He was extremely pleased to be doing such a simple job as an ordinary person. "I understand why I am banned from hunting monsters. What could I possibly lose? Until I saw the awakened ones with supernatural abilities fighting in the abyss." A moment later, Lu Yi used her powers, and her entire body was surrounded by lightning. She used the thunderstorm fury skill of the heavenly Mac. The monsters surrounding them were struck as if by lightning, convulsing and screaming in agony. Nearby, Justin's gaze burned with murderous intent. He shouted, "Go die." Then, Justin swung the sword in his hand. Immediately, the monsters were sliced in half. Joey hid in a corner, observing them fight the monsters. It turned out that this was the demon's stone weapon. When killing monsters in the abyss, it could absorb the supernatural power from those creatures. Just like Lu Yi, she is currently raising the staff in her hand, absorbing all the power from the snake-tailed monkey monster lying motionless on the ground. Or like Justin, who at this moment is also using his sword to absorb the power of the monsters after slaying them. This act reminded Joey of the experience point hunting in video games. The more monsters they kill, the faster they level up. About an hour later. But even the most outstanding awakened individuals in the training team felt utterly exhausted when they had to continuously hunt monsters. Justin, at this moment, clung to the sword, absorbing energy and breathing heavily. He looked at the sword and whispered, "I've killed 310 of them, and finally, I've leveled up." "But I'm different," Joey said, looking at Justin from afar. He smiled, tying the white cloth around his collar. The hand below was agile, using a knife and fork to cut a piece of the snake-tailed monkey's meat. Then, Joey opened his mouth, leisurely enjoying it as if he were traveling. A notification from the system suddenly appeared, with new features: monkey, snake, long arms. However, he seemed uninterested, lost in savoring his delicacy. "I only need to eat a piece of meat from that monster, and I can immediately gain 10 of its traits. Whether I kill it or not, as long as I eat it, Joey will still be able to receive that privilege." You took a bite, and then the notification sounded again: "Feature acquired, poison resistance. The toxin resistance feature is recommended." Joey ate one piece after another. The system then notified, "Capability to adapt to the jungle has been acquired. Adaptability to the jungle, a trait that is encouraged." The notification continued to sound repeatedly: "New feature received, sunlight." Joey sighed, rubbing his full stomach that stretched his clothes to the point of not being able to cover it completely. He lazily lay back after finishing all the meat, leaving only scattered bones behind. Joey closed his eyes, rested, and silently thought, "I've made my decision. Even if I join the extermination team, I will be in charge of logistics. It's great to see others working hard, but in the meantime, I can comfortably get stronger through eating and drinking." Cockroach God was very pleased with himself and said, "Hurry up and praise the greatness of my Cockroach God." He joyfully shouted, "Long live Cockroach God." The members of the steel training team were puzzled by Zhou Yi's strange behavior. They were all very uncomfortable, sharing the same thought: what is he doing? Everyone is struggling to kill the monsters, yet he's calmly enjoying food and drink. In the early morning, in the silent forest, an unusual aura suddenly spread. The sound of heavy footsteps, thunderous and loud, shattered the stillness of the forest. It was emitted by the beast with sharp senses in the forest, viciously chasing after something. It turned out that it was charging forward to attack the snake-tailed monkey monster. The snake-tailed monkey king was not afraid at all, on the contrary, it roared even louder. But in the end, the serpent-tailed monkey was easily bitten on the head by the beast and then rammed upward, piercing through its skull. Zhou Yi hid behind a rock outcrop not far away, witnessing everything in astonishment. "You were startled and blurted out, 'This is the final boss of the silent forest, the beast of awareness.' No wonder it was able to easily defeat the serpent-tailed monkey king at the night level, even though it's only half a level weaker than the beast of awareness. There is such a clear gap in strength." Justin stood beside, calm, and suddenly spoke, we will win as long as everyone follows my plan. We are the rookie team attacking the boss. Zhou Yi's face was tense, his eyes clearly revealing suspicion. He recalled Aaron's reminder before leaving, you will violate the regulations if you challenge the boss on your own. If you are injured, disabled, or die, health insurance will not cover the costs. Zhou Yi hurriedly stopped Justin's intentions. Didn't Aaron forbid us from fighting the boss? I won't participate. He heard you oppose his opinion and immediately grabbed your shirt, shouting, someone like you, a useless waste, has no right to worry about this. You immediately get back to the safe zone, and our backpacks are enough. Lu Yi didn't say anything, but she also had her own thoughts about Zhou Yi's warnings. Justin opened the map and pointed to the circled location, saying, you stay put right here and don't move. Do you understand? Zhou Yi couldn't persuade him, so he separated from the group. Justin, holding a large bag and a small one, replied, okay, good luck to you all. Both Sukai and Songtao secretly rejoiced in their hearts, their faces full of cunning, as if hiding some hidden agenda. At this moment, Lu Yi cautiously asked, Captain, where is the location you sent him to? Isn't this the place where we ambushed the boss? Justin successfully deceived Zhou Yi, and with a smug smile on his face, he casually replied, that's right, and I've stuffed 4 bags that Zhou Yi is carrying with explosives. Wait until Zhou Yi is targeted by the boss, then I will immediately activate the explosion. He devised a vicious plan against you out of jealousy for Lu Yi. Even though he doesn't like you, seeing Zhou Yi being tricked by Justin made him feel indignant. He truly is despicable. Suddenly, her eyes widened in shock. At this moment, Justin's face darkened, pressing the knife to Lu Yi's throat, causing Sukai and Song Tao to be taken aback. He furrowed his brow, glaring with narrowed eyes, his voice low and threatening, quickly take back your holy mother's heart. My patience has its limits, so I will let this offense go. For now. A period of time later. In the safe zone, Zhou Yi had arrived and was fiddling with the monster's corpse. Suddenly, a huge tremor echoed, making him widen his eyes in alarm. Zhou Yi anxiously wondered, is the battle there really that terrifying? The noise can even reach this far. He stood before the pitch-black forest, feeling uneasy and alert. Zhou Yi was stunned when he sensed the movements getting closer and closer to him. Something was coming this way. The shadows rushed by in a blur. Upon closer inspection, they were revealed to be snake-tailed monkeys, wildly dashing as if fleeing from something. They were terrified, making it impossible for him to see clearly ahead. Zhou Yi turned his gaze toward the horde of monsters, then, puzzled, immediately ran past a tree stump that had been forcefully struck by something and toppled over. He immediately turned his head toward the direction from which the sound came. Zhou Yi was stunned when he saw the monstrous boss, Jiak Thursday, charging toward him. The horn on its head, while the boss monster was running, pierced straight through his abdomen. Zhou Yi immediately spat out a mouthful of bright red blood. The horned monster seemed to spring forth, piercing straight through the massive tree trunks. It ran tirelessly until its head slammed into the side of the rocky mountain. At this moment, Zhou Yi's nose and mouth were bleeding profusely. His mind was filled with confusion. Why is the boss here? How did it end up like this? He felt pain and struggled to open his eyes to look. At this moment, the cockroach god appeared, scolding Zhou Yi. If you discover you've been severely injured, you should expel the foreign object from your body and start treating it. But it suddenly realized something was off, coughed a few times, then asked, where are your teammates? Are they all dead? Unknowingly, a fiery arrow was shot. It was aimed with precision, hitting directly into the pouch containing the explosives next to the boss monster, which was still stabbing Zhou Yi. You looked at the explosives slowly catching fire, then mistakenly glanced at the mecha, thinking it was a missile. It was contained inside his teammate's bag. Zhou Yi's eyes stared at them intently. Is that gunpowder? Upon taking a closer look, Zhou Yi finally realized. The sound of the explosion rang out, accompanied by a blinding flash of light, leaving him completely unaware of anything else. In front of Zhou Yi was a pitch-black expanse, leaving him utterly bewildered. It seems like I've been abandoned by my teammates once again and used as bait to lure the monsters. The 4 members of the King Axit training team stood at a distance, watching a massive explosion not far away. Justin stood at the front, laughing loudly with a sense of satisfaction. He said triumphantly, did you guys see the dumb expression on that BH's face at the end? It was hilarious. After the explosion ended, we will go down to deal with the boss monster. It's almost out of health. Truly, a single arrow hits 2 targets. Lu Yi seemed to realize something unusual. She hurriedly ran over, pointed, and called out, Captain, look over there. Justin was incredibly shocked by the scene below. After the explosion ended, the smoke gradually began to disperse. After the hazy smoke, it seemed as though the shadow of a person and a monstrous beast could be seen. And that person was none other than Zhou Yi. After that terrifying explosion, he was still alive. Justin, upon seeing him, was extremely shocked and shouted, What? Is he still alive? Zhou Yi, after the explosion, felt more muscular, forcefully pushing the monster's horn out of his body. Until the horn was pulled out, his entire body was in so much pain that he trembled uncontrollably. The wound caused by the horn was immediately healed, as if nothing had been damaged. Zhou Yi's gaze was filled with intense fury as he shouted at Justin's group, "Do you really think?" Upon finishing his words, he seemed to possess immense strength as he lifted the boss monster. Justin, witnessing everything, was shocked and clenched his teeth. Am I really that easy to bully? After saying this, Zhou Yi threw the boss monster toward where they were standing. Back to the scene before the beast's horned creature was thrown out by Zhou Yi, he regained his composure. Zhou Yi almost asked himself, "Do I have some grudge against you? This is our first meeting, and yet you want to harm me?" His eyes were filled with deep resentment. The notification from the system rang out. The long arm of the snake-tailed monkey activated immediately, and the veins all over Zhou Yi's body bulged. He used all his strength to push the beast's horn away from his stomach. The arm of the snake-tailed monkey could lift objects hundreds of thousands of times heavier than its own weight. He could easily pull out the horn, but his whole body couldn't help but tremble. At the same time, his adaptability to the dense forest was activated. Currently, in a forest environment, the effect of the user's activated feature is enhanced. The system then activated the sunlight skill. Activating. It is now daytime, and the user has activated the effect, so the feature is enhanced. Zhou Yi powerfully lifted it above his head. Justin gritted his teeth, his face tensing as he watched everything unfold. At the foot of the mountain, at that moment, the boss monster was gently thrown by Zhou Yi to the spot where they were standing. The monster's body collided with the ground, creating a huge tremor, with dust and dirt flying everywhere. Justin gritted his teeth, raising his hand to shield himself from the falling debris. The smoke gradually dissipated, and suddenly a hand appeared, raised, accompanied by a faint whisper, "Captain, help, help me." That was the cry for help from Song Tao. He was pinned down by the entire body of the beast, unable to move his lower half, his entire body trembling in pain. The group exclaimed in unison upon seeing his condition. "Song Tao," Justin shouted, drawing the sword from his back, warning, "There's no way to save him now. If you don't want to die, then work together to defeat the boss monster first." He immediately pointed his sword at Song Tao, who was pleading desperately. "No, no, please don't." Justin ferociously used his technique on his unfortunate teammate. Each strike caused blood and flesh to explode, and Song Tao's face immediately swelled with large lumps of flesh, making him cry out in even more agony. He was even ruthless enough to want it to swell even more, to puff up further. In the blink of an eye, Song Tao's entire body exploded just as the sound of his desperate scream faded away. Beneath the monstrous boss's body was a puddle of his flesh and blood. The explosion was successful, awakening the beast with its beastly senses. Its eyes were fierce, wide open. The creature stood up, roaring fiercely. Justin angrily urged the other two in the team, "What are you standing there for? Attack!" Lu Yi and Sukai also became serious, readying their abilities. Sukai let out a roar and charged forward, thrusting his fiery fist toward it. Immediately, a powerful fire swirl struck the boss monster. Lu Yi over there also rushed forward, pointing the staff to unleash a bolt of lightning. Upon reaching the monster, it was struck by the lightning, twitching violently and roaring louder. The beast, in immense pain, howled more fiercely with each passing moment. Justin, next to him, shouted loudly, "It can't hold on much longer." He sneered when he saw it struggle, secretly thinking, "This boss monster is not as strong as the legends say, huh? Well, that makes sense. If this monster could be tossed around like a ball by that useless guy, how strong could it really be?" Justin shouted towards the boss monster, which was surrounded by fire and barriers around its body, struggling with each step, "Go to hell, you beast." The boss monster growled louder, its gaze becoming more and more ferocious. It reared up, and from its horn, a shield-like barrier seemed to form. Its horn gradually absorbed all the lightning from Lu Yi and the flames from Sukai. She anxiously announced, "It's no good, this beast with sensory abilities has absorbed all of our energy again. Don't attack with supernatural powers anymore. The more it strikes, the stronger it becomes." The monster boss gradually advances towards them. Justin, at this moment, finally felt fear. His mind was in complete chaos. "No, it's impossible. I can't defeat it, it's too strong." He looked at Sukai and Lu Yi in front of him and suddenly had an idea. Justin flashed a wicked smile and then unexpectedly struck Sukai on the back of his neck. He was completely unprepared, the captain exclaimed. But then, very quickly, she lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. Lu Yi was horrified, his face pale, stammering as he said, "Justin." He did not overlook her simply because she was a woman. That person lost their humanity and punched Lu Yi hard in the stomach. Justin looked at the two people lying on the ground and said, Who gave you the audacity to block my path? Use up your useless remnants before you die, and thank me." Then he quickly fled the scene. The boss monster took slow steps toward the two abandoned people. There, its massive front foot lifted, aiming at Sukai. The monster decisively stomped down, causing blood and flesh to splatter everywhere. Of course, Lu Yi will be its next victim. It decisively lowered its foot. It seemed that she was doomed, but Zhou Yi managed to hold Lu Yi in time, saving her life. She was held in your arms, still dazed, and asked, "Why did you only save me?" Zhou Yi looked at the girl in his hands. He replied calmly, "Because you are the only one who doesn't bully me and doesn't make me carry the backpack from this event." It also made Zhou Yi recall memories from the past, being abandoned simply because of weakness. In the previous life, I was seen as a sacrificial pawn. But now I am a cockroach. Due to weakness, he was forced by the giant cockroach to clear the way, leading to his death. Currently, I hold no grudge against anyone, yet I am still schemed against by others. In this world, only the strong have the right to decide their own fate. So, I want to become stronger, Zhou Yi said firmly to himself. The stuttering voice echoed, "Zhou Yi, please, please, help me." The voice came from Justin, his face drained of color as the claws of the monster were about to crush him. He also sarcastically repeated Justin's earlier words, "Not even a single monster is allowed to touch me. Didn't you say so?" Captain Justin Zhou Yi was incredibly pleased with his predicament. Justin's face contorted in helplessness. Before he could finish his sentence, the boss's monstrous foot came crashing down. Needless to say, Justin's situation was no different from that of the two teammates who had already died. Zhou Yi calmly observed everything. The system notifies you when you activate the pollen hypnosis skill. Zhou Yi raised his hand in front of Lu Yi. The pollen spread out before her. The pollen of the entire flower, when inhaled in large quantities, would cause a person to fall into a deep coma. He gently placed Lu Yi's unconscious body down, silently thinking, "For now, I still need to keep the secret of this monster's abilities. For her, this is the best." Zhou Yi glanced at the monster boss and said, "Now, there are only the two of us left." The vicious monster stared directly at him. "You are not afraid at all, on the contrary, you feel even more thrilled. You shout, 'I will use you as a stepping stone to make myself even stronger.'" In an instant, his teammates became casualties, and Zhou Yi anxiously looked towards Eren. He was so shocked by the monster's newfound power that he was left speechless, his mouth agape, frozen stiff, struck by a violent tremor. This young man was panting heavily, exhausted from the labor, as if his tongue might fall out. He gritted his teeth, carrying a large, incredibly heavy claw on his shoulder, dragging his feet with each slow step toward his destination.